Welcome back to the 100th episode of He's a Giant Pod, a special edition, a thank you episode to all of you guys who helped us get here. I am your host, Sal, with my co-host, Monty. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. It's kind of wild that we're at 100 episodes. It just kind of flew by here. And we only do like an episode a week, so it's kind of crazy. We're already here.
Yeah, that's a lot of weeks of making episodes. It's for, we're going to let people stream in. Welcome to everybody who's here. Thank you, as always, for being here. You guys are the reason we keep this thing going. It's certainly not the monetization, although we appreciate the super chats. But we'll give you guys a little background here. Let me see. It was about 3 years ago, right, Monty, when we kind of came up with the idea, right around this time 3 years ago,
It was
the
about this
2023
time.
draft.
Because I remember we were texting on St. Patrick's Day about it because I was hammered.
Shocking. Yeah. So
hammered and covered in green.
Yeah, sloppy and vomiting green beer all over himself, no doubt. About 3 years ago, the 2023 draft, after the Giants' 2022 successful playoff season, Monty and I were that season, that off season was really the off season of the Daniel Jones extension, the ignominious moment, whatever it was. I think it was 3:57 p.m. on March 7th, 2023, not to be precise.
Yeah, not to be exact.
But I think leading into the whole decision of Daniel Jones's extension, whether to extend him or not, franchise him, I definitely became public enemy number one for a lot of people on Giants Twitter because I was very vocally against it. I think, Monty, you were a little bit more nuanced, but your approach was like, just transition tag him. What the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I felt he earned the $29 million tag.
Huh?
I felt he earned the transition tag.
I didn't think he earned anything other than hitting the market to see what he would get. But whatever. But I think at the time it was $29 million, and you were like, transition him. I'm like, there's no way anybody's paying him more than $29 million.
That's what exactly.
He's just gonna sign it, or he's gonna come back and say, give me something in this range. But that was sort of the origin of this show. Is like we were kind of talking about that, and then what to do with Barkley and that offseason and how to approach it. I think we both found ourselves largely in the same camp, which is like, yeah, this was a nice season, but they're about to fuck this up. If they think they're ready to compete for like a Super Bowl with this roster, and if they go down this road, let's hope they get it right. But we were genuinely worried about the approach they were going to take, and they really kind of took the approach that we both did not want. And here we are, 3 years later, kind of starting all over. But that was the origin of this show. Honestly, it was like that whole period, and we started talking prospects going into that draft, saying, "All right, fuck it, they're going to try to compete. Let's go find guys who are good." And I remember one of the times that we had our best interaction was before we started the show. Was Monty and I arguing about the value of Jalen Hyatt, the prospect, and.
And then Lance Zierlein cooked you.
Yeah, cooked me. Yeah. So like I think we were arguing, and I was like, Monty was talking about like how he could see him be like a wide receiver one in the right circumstance. And and just to be really mean to Monty, I was like, or he's just gonna end up like freaking Kevin White and do a whole lot of nothing in the NFL. Sorry. I had to be as mean as possible. And then I like out of nowhere, like this responding to my Kevin White post, out of nowhere from the top row comes fucking Lance Zierlein, and he responds, or Deshaun Jackson. I gotta find that. Do you have that tweet? We should share that.
I could find it.
Yeah, like I'm sure Lance did not change that. And it's like so, oh man. And then that became the beginning of this show. I think I did go back and Lance like update, on Jalen Hyatt later on. Yeah, Deshaun Jackson. Go on, Lance. Anyway, so we started the show like talking prospects there. We got into that season. We didn't have the show yet, obviously, but we were really kind of enjoying going through the pre-draft process. And then we had the idea, hey, you know what? Instead of just talking about this pre-draft, why don't we just talk about this all year when everybody else is focused on like game-to-game stuff? We could be watching college football and talking about it. That was the origin of the show, just so people know. And it was a lot of fun leading into it. And our first episode, if you recall, was wide receivers of the 2024 draft.
Yeah.
And it was really a lot of fun. And I remember like the guy that we were both super high on, our wide receiver 2, was Malik Neighbors. Like, and this was back in like September 2023. We were like, this guy's something. This goes into like what we want to talk about, things we've learned, things we got right, things we got wrong. But I do remember distinctly asking you on the episode, like, if I had told you, 5 years from now, Malik Neighbors and not Marvin Harrison is the best wide receiver from this class, would you be surprised?
And we both said absolutely not.
No, you could tell that Neighbors was special. Now, to be fair, I was very much against drafting Neighbors only because I really wanted to take a quarterback and just get that problem addressed. And we were wrong about that, and we'll talk about that. But we saw the value in the talent Neighbors. So that was our first episode.
Yeah, it was nothing about the talent of Malik Neighbors. I think we recognized how special he was, but I think we've always stood on the standpoint, and I still stand there, is there is no right time to pick a quarterback. If you find one, you just take one.
We haven't thank you for everybody again being here. Momo is asking, have we talked about OB3 yet? We have not talked about OB3 on this episode, but we damn sure will. I assure you, OB3 is worth discussing. But again, thanks everybody being here. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. We're already up to a bunch of viewers, and it's rising. So, as always, this is an episode for you guys, about you guys. But anyway, your thoughts, Monty, before we jump into some Giant stuff, but just some overview of this episode in our show.
Not really, man. I'm excited to go through it. We talked, today and yesterday. I think we have some interesting conversations, kind of just flow naturally. And if anybody has any questions or things they want to add, throw them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna make this one as interactive as we can. We normally ignore everybody in the chat as much as possible, unless you see something really awful, which we enjoy. And a special shout out to a dear friend of mine here. Imagine calling a brown man a terrorist on YouTube. It's a good thing TSA.
It's usually terrorists, Monte and Sal.
Yeah, it's a good thing DHS is not funded right now. Otherwise, I might be in trouble. Anyway, all right, let's move on. So before we get into the stuff we've learned and the draft hits and misses we've had, as always, let's do a little bit of Giants update. Not much to report on the free agency front. We did sign Sam Roberts, a rotational defensive tackle who was on the Falcons last year. I think he only got like 100 and something snaps. I look back at his career. It was an interesting prospect. Like, he was at a D2 school and he kind of worked his way up. He only had like 100 snaps, but dude, he was freaking awesome in those 100 snaps. Like, you put up his grades.
Great PFF grades for first limited snaps.
I think a lot of it is based on him whooping the shit out of the interior O-line of the Patriots in one game.
Yeah, it was one game that he really put up numbers.
Took Jared Wilson's manhood, and it helps his stock. But listen, a rotational DT, so we got that checked, right? DT4 checked off the box now.
D-kick can shower.
Absolutely, we're ready to go. The Giants have met with, in their building, apparently, Shelby Harris. Now that's a legit DT2 type player. Shelby Harris, most recently on Cleveland, I believe. A guy who's been around the league, used to be on I think he was on Detroit, right, for a while, and he's all over. He's been on a few teams now, but
Broncos.
Right. Harris is a good run stuffer. Like, that's his job, right? He's a big fat guy in the middle. He double teams. He's a two-gapper, run stopper. Exactly what we're looking for. They haven't signed him yet. I assume they're zeroing in on him. We're beginning to hear rumblings that maybe they've gotten so far into this process now that they think that they're closing in on a potential compensatory draft pick next year, that they may want to wait either to get the guy under the comp formula number, which we think is around $4 million as the threshold, or sign him after the draft, at which point I don't know if it's after the draft. Mason's here, he can answer. I don't know if it's after the draft or after June 1st, that it doesn't count against the comp formula. One of those two.
Yeah, it's one of those two. I think it's draft, but it might be June.
Right. And, I think so. I do think the Giants at this point, we're close enough to the draft where I'm not really expecting them to sign anybody unless they agree to be under the comp formula number at this point.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Although, they better figure it out, because right now they're projected not to have a pick because they signed Fat Ricard. So
fat ass Pat Ricard. You got to say his name right. And that's not including the fact that Austin Schlottman is obviously going to get like 99% of the reps at center for
And
the
that's
Titans. And as soon as I think
that should
he only has to get like 30% of the reps or something, and then then he counts or something like that. I forgot the
don't know,
number.
dude. It's all about where he ranks within like the players
Centers.
paid. Yeah, well,
Right.
no, every player, and it's
Right.
based off of what you paid, the percentage you play awards. So
Yeah.
it's confusing. Like there's guys who make less than him that are above him because they've had really high reps and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, look, the way I look at it is, it wasn't our a preference to go into free agency with this very kind of like measured conservative approach. We thought the roster needed some players, and we were okay with spending, digging into the future years of cap space to do that. But they've taken a different approach. It's very clear now, like getting into what their approach has been they've identified a handful of players who they thought were worth multi-year deals, and they paid those guys, right? So they brought back Jermaine Illuminor. If you ask most Giant fans when free agency started, of the big three free agents we were going to have, you could only pick one guy to bring back. Who would it be? I'm willing to bet the majority would have said Jermaine Illuminor, because everybody just wanted the O-line to stay solid, didn't want to lose their right tackle. Well, they got him for a good deal. Say what you want, but they got him for a really solid deal, 3 years, $39 million. They gave a 3-year deal to Isaiah Likely. And I think that's, again, them identifying a young player of value, seeing that, like, hey, we're planning on developing a pass game that uses a larger slot receiver, slot tight end, and he's going to be a feature of this offense, and we see value in paying a young player that money. And they paid 3 years to Tremaine Edmonds, still a relatively young player. He's only 27 years old. And he's a run stuffing defensive leader in the linebacker room as a true Mike. I think they took a measured approach. Everybody else, they've been very careful about giving out real money to, and they're clearly not wanting to dig into future year space unless the right opportunity arises. So they're being careful and measured. And you could agree or disagree, but it's very obviously the plan they're taking.
Look, I don't have an issue with it as long as they get their pick at this point. I mean, look at any of these players individually, and would you trade a 4th-round pick for them? Probably not. Like, that's where we are. So why not zero in, get that 4th-round pick, and then there's going to be veterans who want to sign around camp and things like that. So as you said, I think we can put a halt on free agency. I think there's going to be a little moves, but for the most part, we're on to the draft. And the one thing here is, I think the most recent news is they brought out everybody to Columbus. They brought everyone. So what do you think about that?
I mean, does it surprise you? There's one person they didn't bring out who's of note. They didn't bring their offensive coordinator to Columbus. They brought their defensive coordinator to Columbus. And they brought John Harbaugh and, my glorious king, Chris Mara. And Joe Shane was allowed to fly with the team.
Yeah.
There's a very sad picture of Joe Shane in the back moping while John Harbaugh's talking to Sonny Styles. Like, it's actually a really funny picture.
Patricia around his shoulder.
Oh man, this poor guy. Yeah, they're all up in Columbus. Are we surprised? You shouldn't be. I mean, arguably there might be 4 top 10 players taken from Ohio State. We have the 5th overall pick. And I think the players that everybody assumes one of the two is going to be a Giant, or most likely going to be a Giant, in Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles. I mean, they had to go and meet these guys in their home ground, like in person, talk to them. Rumor has it they spent a ton of time talking to Caleb Downs, way more than with Sonny Styles. So what do you make of that?
I've said it. Like, I don't think that there's this necessary. I'm not convinced that Sonny Styles has jumped Caleb Downs. He very well could have, but I would still take Caleb Downs above Sonny Styles, and I'm not convinced that the Giants wouldn't. I think safety is really important to those defenses. Linebacker is as well, so I could see him going either way. But to me, safety is not about athleticism.
No,
and that's I don't care about what Caleb Downs tested. Not that there was anything to really worry about, but the tape speaks for itself. Well, Sonny Styles has very good tape, but it's also carried by athleticism.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that safety thing for a second, because some people will say, well, you guys weren't, and I'm going to keep bringing it back to our theme, self-reflection, right? You
Mhm.
guys weren't super high on Nick Emenwariye, and he was a
Mhm.
super freak athlete at safety, and look at him now. And to that, I'll respond, it's not that it doesn't matter. I think it obviously helps to be a great athlete. I think where you go and who your coach is and how they use you matters a lot more when you're talking about taking a raw athlete of that caliber. And Mike McDonald largely used Emenwariye like a hybrid linebacker nickel.
Mhm.
He wasn't a true like center field safety.
He
He
wasn't
was
a safety,
you
like, at all. Like, he was
right. I
playing.
mean, he right. I mean, he was used as like, like Notre Dame calls it the viper position, right?
Mhm.
The guy who plays in the nickel, but is also basically a linebacker. Like these
Mhm.
are usually big, strong athletes who are really athletic. I think that Mike McDonald understood what kind of physical specimen and player Emenwariye is and just maximized it. They took advantage of that strength. That's a great coach. Uh, would Emenwariye have done the same on every team if they try to, let's say they said, hey, you're this big freak athlete. We think you have great range. Go play center field. Would he have had the same impact last year? I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know, but I don't think so. I think that stuff kind of matters. So, but in general, athleticism is not the most important thing for a true safety. And I think we should define what a true safety is to us, right? We're talking either a guy who can play center field or a guy who's playing in the box, specifically covering tight ends and being an assist in the run game, essentially.
Mhm.
A strong safety. So one of those two traditional roles. If you're taking a safety this high, I'm thinking more of a guy who has to have the ability to play center field and
Mhm.
be the leader of your defense.
Yeah, and I guess that's the one question is with Caleb Downs is, it's somewhat of projection about what he's doing single high because he's really only played in the box based off Ohio State's defense.
Right. That's this year.
Mhm.
Again, Matt Patricia used him that way. He played a ton of single high as a true freshman in Ohio State with Nick Saban.
No,
You know,
yeah,
he
yeah,
was
Alabama.
at Alabama, and when he was a transfer from Alabama.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think he's shown throughout the course of his collegiate career that he can do all of it.
Yeah.
And I think Caleb Downs is the safest pick in this draft, honestly. I think he's the easiest pick that you can make and say, barring unforeseen injuries and things like that, this guy is probably going to have like a 10 to 15 year NFL career studded with Pro Bowls and All Pros. I think he's the safest bet in this class to make that bet on.
I agree. I think he's a culture changer. I think that's a good thing about Styles and Downs is those guys love football. Those guys are going to be leaders for your team. Yeah, I think they're gonna blow the interviews away. But yeah, I don't know. Well, first of all, before we transition to anything, thank you to Chris for
I wish
the
you hadn't seen
$5
that.
super chat, and thank you even more for the opportunity to where he says, "I hate to admit, Monty was right about the Luminar contract value, but I was right. Thank you. I told you, D-Kit. I told you, Sal. I was right. Thank you very much."
You were right. I wish I had brought my box of biscuits. I would offer you one. But I didn't. They're upstairs. You want me to go get them? So, you know what I was right about? That you chose on our 100th episode to wear the ugliest shirt imaginable. Show the crowd this ugly ass shirt that look at that. Is that a Darren Waller?
This is a Darren Waller 100th anniversary jersey. For a 100th episode, I wore a 100th anniversary episode, newly purchased, $12 off NFL.com.
You just bought this?
I just bought it, $12 off NFL.com.
So you chose to buy the jersey of a crackhead in the ugliest jersey imaginable for our 100th episode.
Well, I just bought it in general. I figured I hate the jersey. Actually, it's better in person, to be honest with you. But I hate the jersey, but I figure it's the only there. Luckily, I don't think they're ever going to bring it back. So get it while it's here. And the only options were Daniel Jones or Darren Waller. So
I would have
naturally, I went
100% gone with Daniel Jones over Darren Waller.
Nope.
100%. Because at least there's a story behind Daniel Jones.
I'm not
what the
wearing
hell
a
is
Daniel
the
Jones
Darren
jersey.
Waller story?
Not wearing a Daniel Jones jersey. Too much hate in my heart for that man.
You couldn't get a Darius Slayton 86 throwback?
It wasn't there.
Okay. All right. All right. What else are we going to talk about here? So yeah, I mean, I think the discussion. Let's talk about the draft for a little bit. So obviously, those two guys are in play. Carnell Tate. What do you think about the possibility of Carnell Tate being in play either at 5 or in a trade down scenario?
I wouldn't mind it in a trade down scenario. I mean, we talked about it. I'm pretty off at Cardinal Tate at 5.
I think it's pretty telling that Matt Nagy's not there, because I feel like if you were really, really thinking about Carnell Tate there, you'd want to see him work out in front of you. And correct me if I'm wrong. Did he even work? I don't think he worked out at the combine, right? Or did he?
I don't think
recall.
He did.
I don't
not drills.
So I didn't really think they'd be in on Carnell Tate. It's still possible, obviously, but it wasn't something that I saw happening. And I think they're really focused on Downs or Styles there. I agree with you. They're both culture changers. They're both leaders. The way I look at the difference between the two of them, and I vacillate back and forth, is very simple. With Downs, I think it's a safe bet, and I think he's I've used the term before. He's a guy he's really like a force multiplier on the defense. I think he's the kind of guy who immediately comes in and improves the play of everybody around him. He's that kind of a player. He's a rare type of player. And, would I expect him to come in and potentially have your nickels in better position, your corners in better position, your linebackers shading properly, and your entire defense as a whole operating at a higher level? Yeah, I think he's that good. And I think that's the value you get out of Downs, in addition to his incredible instinct. Like, the guy, I don't care about his athleticism. He's always where the ball is. Like, he knows where that ball is going. He reads that play before anybody. I mean, it's a really safe bet of a pick. He's a little bit limited in his athletic upside. I think that's fair to say, right? Compared to like Styles, who it seems like he has limitless potential in his athletic upside and his physical ability. 6'5", 240-ish. What did he run? A 4.4 flat, something like that. Like crazy testing. You see it on tape. Former safety, was just learning how to play linebacker, and his learning curve is remarkable. Like, he gets better week after week. He also has that like dog leader mentality on the defense, leader of the defense. Like, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. I think you're going to get a safer bet for a long career with Downs. I think with Styles, you are swinging for the fences a little bit on the upside, and the chance that this guy could potentially become a top 2 to 3 linebacker in the NFL. I think that's kind of what you're betting on with Styles. And go whichever way you want. I think you can't go wrong with either of those guys if you do take one of them.
I agree. We have a couple questions. Mason said, or maybe they're inviting Tate to be a top 30. I mean, I think that very well could be the case. I think these other Ohio State guys would probably be top 30s, but I do think it's telling the type of contingent that they brought to Ohio State, and the fact that they brought the DC but not the OC. Doesn't mean they're not interested in Tate, but I do think it's telling for how interested they are in the other guys.
Yeah. So the other discussion at pick 5 I wanted to bring up here, and this is barring a trade down. We could talk about the trade down scenario, obviously, as we lead up to the draft, but this is the big hot topic, and I sent you a link where Dan Jeremiah was asked by Adam Shine, I think it was today, if, and Dan, for those who follow, how I feel. I think we both feel the same way, that there is no NFL draft. There's no NFL draft expert who I respect more than Dan Jeremiah. I think he's the best there is. He's the most plugged in. You mentioned it. There was a year where he got all 50 top picks right, in some order, but he's insanely accurate, both in his own internal scouting, being a former scout for the Ravens, briefly for the Eagles, and just his connections in the league. He knows what teams are looking for, who they value, generally where they're going. So he was asked, what if Jeremiah Love is there at 5? What do you think the Giants do? And he said that whatever the record is for the fastest time to run up to the podium to make the pick, I think they would try to break it. So that means something coming from Jeremiah.
Did he said that? Maybe I misheard. Did they say he thinks the Giants will, or he thinks he would, or he said he would? There's a difference there.
I think he kind of hinted that he would, but I think it was mostly he would.
Okay, because there's a difference between using intel and what he would do.
But Jeremiah doesn't typically say, this is what I think they're going to do. He just kind of puts it in his own terms usually.
Which is why it would be telling if he did.
Right. So I don't think he exactly said that they would, but I think he kind of hinted that he thought that would be the case, right? And that he would.
I didn't take it that way, but
all right.
maybe.
I mean, you can interpret whatever you want, but let's just talk
Mhm.
about that, right? Because there are people, people I like, who are vehemently against the idea of taking Jeremiah Love at 5 if he's there. My take on it is, would he be my pick at 5 if I'm the one making the pick? And the answer is probably not, because odds are Styles and Downs are on the board. Now, if Styles and Downs are off the board, I'd have a hard time picking anybody else. But if Styles and Downs are on the board, I probably would go with one of them. But if we did take Love, I'm not going to lose my shit and go crazy. I'm not upset. You're taking the best offensive playmaker in this draft class, bar none. He is the best offensive playmaker.
Yeah.
And if you look at the consensus big boards, and I'm talking about the good ones, guys like Brugler, guys like Jeremiah, he's like number 2 or 3 overall in this class. Like consistently, you've seen his tape. I know you don't think he's Bijan. Not many people are Bijan, but he's a pretty safe bet to be like an elite offensive weapon. I think that's fair to say. Like, we're talking about a 1,500, 1,800 yard total yards from scrimmage, tons of touchdowns, a lot of explosive plays in the pass game, in the run game. Like, he's a weapon. You have your quarterback. You have your elite wide receiver 1 who's coming back. You have other running backs in the room to support him. You have your 2 edge rushers who are really looking good. You still have Kayvon on this team as edge 3. You have Dexter Lawrence. You've got the pieces in place, your bookend tackles. You've got the pieces in place. What is wrong with taking the best offensive playmaker in the class at 5 for that young quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I wouldn't lose my shit over. I'm going to continue to advocate against it. But as far as, like, it's a weaker draft class. It's 5th overall. He's a blue chip player. Like, I agree with just taking blue chip players. I wouldn't, I don't necessarily agree if Downs and Styles are off the board. I would go there. I'd probably go Bain, but that's just me. Or one of these other guys. I'm just, but regardless, I don't think I think it adds a new wrinkle to the offense. Obviously, I do think he would complement Cam Scadaboo. Although, if you're drafting a running back 5 overall, that guy better get a lot of your carries. You can't be doing, a 60-40 thing if you're taking a running back 5th overall. I think it's a position that is pretty clearly the least valuable and like easiest to replace, I think, among the main positions in the league. I think that there is a gap even from off-ball linebacker and safety to running back. I think that we have a very good running back who, in Cam Scadaboo, who I think deserves a chance to show that he can be the bell cow, and I believe he can be. And I don't know. I think that this team would be better with other picks than Jeremiah Love. But I agree with everything you said also.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you a little retort, but I want to give a shout out to Spiro, Mr. Glassapple. Thank you for joining us. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't had a chance to yet. Subscribe to He's a Giant Pod. Help us grow. It's right there on the YouTube page. Special shout out to Spiro and Hefe and Eli, the Revival guys. I'm sure you guys know about them. If you don't, definitely tune into their show. They're awesome. They were the origins of this show as well, because Monty was just, he was a roadie for them when I discovered him. So
did some background stuff for them. I was doing the Big Blue Beards. You were with Antonio.
I did a few episodes with Antonio and Manny. I don't know what happened to Manny. But yeah, and then Tony just stopped doing it. But yeah, we had some good times in those days, just doing different things before we settled in here. Look, when it comes to Love, I don't want to berate this too much, but at the same time, like, I just feel like this is a very different situation than the Saquon situation in 2018, right? We agree with that. Like 2018, Eli was just, and I love Eli to death to this day, but he was food at that point. He was cooked. We had the 2nd overall pick. We didn't have anything resembling an offensive line. All we had was Odell on that team. no defense, no line, no quarterback. I mean, I love Eli, but he was done. All you had was Odell, and you had the second overall pick in a loaded class full of all pro type prospects, all pro quarterbacks. Ultimately, you had so much ability to change the trajectory of your organization. You could have taken Josh Allen. You could have traded that pick for a haul, ended up with Quentin Nelson, just like the Colts did ultimately with the Jets. You could have taken Sam Darnold if you loved it. Right? There are things you could have done there, and you end up taking you took Saquon, who was a great player, but what difference did it make? You threw him into a shit team. He puts up 2,000 yards, and we still win 4 games. And I think that was the problem, that Saquon's entire tenure as a Giant was marred by that decision to take him when the team was nowhere near competing and had to really go through a complete overhaul, literally at every position, including quarterback. And they just wasted his time here. We're just in a different situation now. You have Jackson Dart. Even if you don't believe that Jackson Dart is definitely the long-term answer, he definitely showed you enough year one that you should be confident that he's our quarterback for the next few years. I think that's safe to say. And you have Neighbors. You have all these other guys in place. Like you can win games with Jeremiah Love right now.
Yeah. I think, the point, I mean, everything you said, and then to add to that, just I mentioned it's not as good of a draft. It's not the best draft as far as blue chippers go. And in that draft, we were second overall, not fifth overall. That's a big difference. And then the other part of this was that there is obvious trade down situations. We heard about what the Broncos might have been willing to offer. We heard about how the Jets weren't even worried about us taking a quarterback. They knew, like, it was such a terribly handled situation of like a franchise altering pick, whether that was quarterback or trading down for a haul, and they just ignored it and just took Saquon.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous. So we're in a different spot. If we look, I think if you gave me if Love, Styles, and Downs are all there at 5, and I think there's a decent chance they could be, because there's a world in which you see like 2 edge rushers and Maui Noah going, 2, 3, 4, something like that, right? I'm probably leaning towards I'm leaning towards Styles 1, Downs 2. And those 2 are very close, and that may change in my mind approaching draft day, and then Love 3. But again, if we end up with Love, I see the vision. You know what I mean? I just see the vision, like fat ass Pat Ricard opening up a running lane and Love housing it is not a bad way to live. So
I'll be upset when it gets called, and I'll be watching Jeremiah Love highlights the next morning, excited to.
And the difference is he's impactful. Saquon, as great as he was, had a limited impact because the rest of the team was dog shit, right? It wasn't his problem, but the rest of the team was dog shit. His ability to produce wins was almost impossible. And he pretty much did everything you could humanly imagine a person doing as a rookie at running back to try to help them win games. And it didn't amount to anything because the rest of the team was just broken. If Jeremiah Love has even like 60% of what Saquon did his rookie year, that's going to win football games for the Giants. Like, make no mistake about it. They're winning games based on Jeremiah Love playing at that level.
Especially when you took OBJ away and all the focus got put on Saquon after that.
Exactly. So anyway, that's the other discussion going on. One last draft discussion point before we get into our episode, our own personal recaps. Dan and Nick did a great episode today talking about Vega. I always mess up his name. Ioani.
I always say Ione, but that's not right.
Yeah. They've got it. They're a full bloom in love, just like D-Kid with him, as a lot of people are. Dan making the point that that he would feel very comfortable taking him at 5. I think Nick felt more like, yeah, it's okay. I would rather trade down to get him, but I love the prospect. I think Nick, I don't know if you listened, but he had a very similar evaluation that you did, which is elite pass blocker, just a tank of a human, somewhat not elite athletically, but it kind of doesn't matter, right? Yeah. I think that's the way you look at it. But a difference-making, dominant Pro Bowl caliber guard. And so, that's like, what do you think? How comfortable do you feel in taking a guy like him at pick 5? If a trade is not available and you want to go trenches, do you feel comfortable taking him there?
I wouldn't be mad about it. I probably wouldn't be my pick because I don't. He like I said, to me he's outside the blue chips looking in. So if they see him as a blue chip, then take him. But I'm not quite there.
I think he's a blue. We've had this argument. I think
Yeah,
he's a
we
blue chip.
discussed it last episode.
Yeah, but I don't think he's quite, in my mind, as impactful long term on this organization like the other guys would be. That's all.
Mhm.
I just disagree that he's going to be more impactful than the guys we just mentioned. But he's look, if they land on him, same thing. I'd be fine with it. I would prefer trading down to get him. I don't care what anybody says about like, oh, people are undervaluing guard. That may be true. I'll believe a guard is going five to 10 when I see it, And I feel like you should feel comfortable if you can make a trading down to get another day 2 pick to take him. And you should be comfortable losing him in such a scenario. Like
Yep.
I don't think he's this can't miss player to the degree that I would be like heartbroken if we traded down to the pick and didn't get him. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, and I agree with you. And I'll say too, the fifth overall thing, like it's not something I would be mad about. Like you won't catch me being mad about trying to make the offensive line better.
He's hooked on phonics. Ooh, Wani. Thank you, D-Kid. How about another O-line player that's not getting as much love for I don't know what reason? What if Malinoa and Owani are both there? Let's play the board out. Like Mendoza 1, Arvel Reese 2, Sonny Styles 3. I don't know. Love 4. Or screw it. Caleb Downs 4. Whatever. And you got Uwani and Malinoa sitting there with Love. Which one you're not taking Love there. And you have to choose between one of those two. Just take Bane out of it for a second. If you had to pick a trench player there, are you taking Malinoa or are you taking Uwani?
Malinoa.
Tell me why.
I think Malinoa has more upside. I think that he's a much better athlete than Ione is. I think that the tackle flexibility is something I value in him. I see them as very similar level players. They win in different ways, but I see higher upside with Malinoa. Given his athleticism, he has plenty of strength, even if it's not at Ione's level, and then also just the tackle flexibility. But it's not to take away from Ione. I'm a little bit higher in Malinoa. I've already decided this. It's not that it's a snap decision. I've just already thought about it.
Yeah. I'm with you on this. Like, I just feel like at the end of the day, this is one of those, and I'm not big on like positional value over everything else. I don't believe in that. I think you should draft for impact, not for other things. But even by that metric, Monty, like, I think the impact of having Maui Noah on this organization is far greater than having Luwani. Because I don't think that the delta between potential guard play at the NFL level from Uwani to Maui Noah is so great that it overcomes the value that Maui Noah offers you as your future right tackle after a certain amount of time. Or maybe your left tackle. Like, I mean, look, Andrew Thomas gets hurt, and what Maui Noah offers you if you did take him over Uwani is you now have freed up, you can play him at guard, but you've actually kind of freed up Marcus Bowe to be developed on the interior as well, right? Like, if you now have a guy who can play right tackle, probably can play left tackle, and you can actually put Marcus Bowe like firmly in the developmental stage of becoming either a center or a guard for you. So I think he offers you more, and so therefore I think his impact is higher. Even though I think Uwani's probably the better player today, I think he's probably the better offensive lineman, just pound for pound. I think he's a better player, but I think that you get a little more value out of Maui Noah, not by a little bit.
Yeah, to me, I see it more I see it more as a preference thing as far as where I rate them. But yeah, I mean, they're both very good players. So D could ask this when we're having our love discussion, just trying to get some of these questions. What is Love's greatest skill that makes him special? What would you say?
I think he's very elusive as a runner. Like, he forces guys to miss tackles. His ability to change direction in tight spaces and get missed tackles out of it, and then have the ability to turn that into like an explosive play immediately after is relatively rare. It's actually very rare. And so that's, I think, elusiveness and the ability to convert that elusiveness into explosiveness, I think, is his biggest trait.
Yeah, I don't love his like tackle breaking ability, but I think he's kind of similar in some senses to what the kind of prospect Saquon was, where I think he can be an all or nothing type guy. And I think in that sense, I think his skill is his breakaway ability. I think his skill is that he gives you, he can give you a big play at any moment. And that's something you don't have in a Cam Scatterbill. As much as I like a lot of his game, like what he brings more, he doesn't bring that, and that's very, very important in the NFL.
I mean, I think he's actually quite good at forcing missed tackles. I mean, not the traditional, like he's not like, it's different. Like Ashton Genty would just run through people, right? Like guys would grab onto him and he would just keep churning. He had like that Emmitt Smith-like ability, right? To get low and just break through guys. Yeah. It's not like that with him. He's more of an elusive, guy to force missed tackles, but he does, like, his start and stop ability in short spaces is pretty elite. And I think guys who are trying to like cover run fits on him, they miss him a lot because he just changes direction on them. And he forces them out of the way. And then, like, that's the thing, like all he needs is a small crease, and then it's like he hits like the NOS button and that rocket acceleration takes off and he's gone, right? It's a really unique skill set. I don't see it much. Like, remember, like Blake Corum had that short area, like elusiveness, really good, like inside space between tackles. And he does that in the NFL level, actually. He's actually very efficient doing that. But he never really had like that breakaway gear. And I think it's like that kind of short area ability to force people to miss with like the ability to just rocket ship out of there as soon as he gets a little bit of space.
Yeah, I think he's a very good running back in those situations. I just don't see him as an elite like missed tackle force guy. But to what Alex said here, like Genty breaks more tackles, but you can't turn as many broken tackles in the 40-yard runs. And I think that's what it comes down to.
And by the way, Love doesn't have a lot of negative plays either. For like, I mean, when you typically describe like these like Saquon type guys, like these home run guys, they tend to have a lot of negative plays. He doesn't. Like, he tends to turn them into like at least net zero. He doesn't usually lose a ton of yardage.
Saquon didn't in college either. I think it's a big difference once you go to the NFL, depending on what team you're on. Like if you play behind that Raiders offensive line, how many negative plays do you think he's looking at this year? I
don't think Saquon was as elusive. I think Saquon was just a tank.
I think Saquon was more elusive, personally.
He was just powerful, like I think he just ran through people.
I feel like it's a whole other discussion, but yeah.
There's a little bit of Gibbs in this guy and how he like just gets like he shakes people. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's joystick like, I'm not, but just he's a little bit more shifty.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, I just don't see those comps. For me personally, he's more of a Chris Johnson like guy to me.
Look, it's not. I think the reason there's a debate is because he's not a Bijan level prospect, right? Like that's the truth. Like I don't think it's honest to say that.
I think there are people. I think there are people who do think he's a Bijan level prospect.
I disagree with that. I think Bijan.
I disagree too, but I do think that there's draft analysts who are kind of there with him at this point.
Right. This is why it's tough, right? I mean, this is exactly right, DK. Like, I think the debate we're having is, I think the debate everybody's having, like, that actually follows the draft closely and follows, like, he's really freaking good. Is he so good that you can put him in the category of the guys that you have felt traditionally comfortable with this high in the draft class? That's harder to know. But I'll put it this way. It seems to me like guys who I trust, like Jeremiah, feel he is, right? They're like,
that's important.
I mean, I trust Jeremiah's judgment quite a bit. There's not a lot of people on draft Twitter and draft world that I've learned to really trust a lot. I think a lot of them have kind of what we call, like herding takes, where like one guy has a take and they all have the same take.
Yeah.
I think Jeremiah is a guy who's relatively independent thinking. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't do groupthink, right? I think he and he tends to be more. His track record is just very good.
And there is groupthink, but they follow him,
right? But they don't know why they're following.
Yeah,
I think he independently I mean, look, he learned in the Ozzie Newsome's tree, right? He knows how to scout players, and he's good at this, and he explains it. He does think highly of him, and I think my instinct was I really like this kid, and I like it. I probably don't like him as much as Dan Jeremiah did, but that means something to me that he feels so highly. So this is going to be the debate about him. We'll see. I'm not going to be upset if we take him. I'm actually pretty happy.
Yeah, I'll say this because I think it's transition to what we really were going to talk about this episode, so we can get into it. Is with Daniel Jeremiah, something I've learned while doing this is, I like doing it. I think I'm good at some things, but I'm not like so like arrogant or like I realize how much I don't know by learning how much I know now, and I'm willing to I'm like my take isn't better than somebody else's. I'm willing to say, hey, that guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. So, like, if the Giants take him, like, I trust these guys that this many guys like him.
Yeah, I think I learned that lesson with Drew Phillips, right? And I think like Brugler was super high on Drew Phillips, and I wasn't. Maybe I was more right than they were. Maybe they were right, but at the end of the day, at pick what was he taking? Pick 90 or something like that.
Yeah,
like
something like that.
You got a guy who, or 70 something, whatever it was. You got a third round pick who's basically an everyday starting nickel corner. That's good value.
It was a good pick. It was a good pick.
It's a good pick. Like, you can't argue with the value of the pick, right? And I think those guys are very high on him. So, yeah. So let's segue into like the history of the show and what we've learned, right? So like when we started this, we were getting whatever cut ups and bits and pieces of film we can get our hands on. It was real ghetto. Like, we get whatever you want.
Watching a lot of Move the Sticks and trying to kind of hear some of their thoughts, reading a lot of reports,
YouTubing entire games and trying to find them so we could follow the players. Like, it was tough, right? Because you didn't get the spotlight. And we had to kind of learn by watching how other people evaluated, and then we watched ourselves and discussed it amongst ourselves. And I think we were more victims of groupthink in those days than we are now.
Definitely.
I think what changed a lot of what we did was our first season when we were able to get Matt Waldman on, right? I think Matt came on, and it was one of my favorite episodes where he walked us through his process of how he does the RSP and how he individually grades people. And Matt, for those who do not know, is one of the more independent, respected talent evaluators. He only grades 4 positions on offense: quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and running back. That's all he does. But he does detailed analysis on these guys, and he says he doesn't watch anybody else's evaluation. He just independently grades them. And sometimes he has like way out there kind of things, good and bad, but he's independent and his process is sound. So he taught us like the value of come up with your own system and stick with it, right? And just like follow your process, and then look at your results at the end of the year, see what you got right, see what you got wrong, tweak it. And I think that was we thought about that a lot, right? That after that first season of He's a Giant, like, how do we make this better? And what did we come up with was we got to find someone whose evaluation process we trust and use that as our North Star principle. And we went back to Old Faithful. The greatest, most influential coach in NFL history is Bill Walsh. All right, in terms of talent evaluation, we took the Bill Walsh guide to scouting and we turned that into our scoring system for every position.
Yeah. And, I think part of it is like, I think as the season went on, we got better and better in our evaluations in the first year. But another part is like, we didn't necessarily do a great job. I think we did a good job in some sense, but like that first quarterback episode, we put so much damn work into that episode. We grinded. We finally got the all 22 like a little bit earlier on that season. And I think that kind of set a bar too, where like how to kind of look at these guys and like we start like what we want to look at when we do it. Like that's kind of like where we started getting into it as well.
This hateful old man wants me to show you guys my muscles for no reason. Yes, I do work out every day. I'm not going to sit here and flex for you.
D-Kit's grumpy that we still haven't signed into your offensive lineman.
You know how I know you're gay, D-Kit? You want me to flex for you. I think that going through those episodes of like the old stuff we did, coming up with the scoring system was huge. And we did it last year for the first time, the 0 to 5 scale, and it worked well. I do think that it gave us some more independent reviews than other people, right? We just kind of watch guys, we watched like the game film and said, here's what we like. A lot of times we agreed with each other and not with consensus. And we're like, I don't know what people are looking at. So here's an example of a big hit we had, right? Early on, our tight end one last year was Harold Fannin Jr.
Yep.
Right. Like nobody was talking about Harold Fannin Jr. Right. Like nobody. And I remember how we found him because where did he play again? Freaking Bowling Green or something?
Bowling Green.
Yeah. Like we found him because we were looking at like just raw stats of tight ends.
Yeah, it's like PFF numbers were fantastic or something.
And he was like consistently at the top of PFF. But like and if you, for those of you who use PFF, if you look at the top of every position group, you're gonna find people from really like guys you've never heard of, right? Like from Nowhereville, and and he's really angry today.
No,
just go eat something. Freaking diabetes is kicking in, so insulin is kicking his ass. But so Harold Fannin was on nobody's radar. I'm forgetting who the hell? Yeah, tight end one for people, it was Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland. Tight end one, Colson Loveland. But our tight end one was Harold Fannin. When we actually went back and said, all right, let's watch this guy. He's putting up crazy stats. And we watched him, we're like, holy shit, this guy's good. You know, like, and I remember it wasn't just like against crap schools. He put up like 220 yards on Penn State, if I recall, right? Something crazy. And we were like, all right, this guy's got the goods. And I remember watching him and thinking, he's not that athletic. He's not that big. He just wins like every single rep, especially as a receiver. And we had him great, like we just independently graded high. We're like, all right, let's trust our grading system. And then sure enough, he had a monster year at tight end this year for Cleveland. Really with nothing resembling good quarterback play.
Yeah. And I think we went back after the season, we did our top 50. And, I think what we take a different approach at that. We respect the grades we did, but we're also going to be like, hey, just because the grades say something doesn't mean that's automatically my opinion. So we put it up. We had Loveland and Warren above them. Because we both didn't like the other one. And then we ended up having Fannin as our 3, but I remember us having the conversation we got to make sure this guy's high. He was our tight. He's got graded high. We like him. We kept moving him up our big board.
Yeah, and I think ultimately they got drafted. All of them went to good places that worked out for them, and they're all good tight ends. We still argue over like who's actually better. I'm winning, but that's fine. Monte doesn't want to accept it.
Mike Gesicki clone, if you ask me.
Mike Gesicki, who was tight end 1, that's fine. Mike Gesicki, who took his team all the way, helped lead his team to the NFC division round. How far did Tyler Warren take the Colts again?
All right, his quarterback broke his leg. Look what he's doing for Daniel Jones.
Oh no, he lost Daniel Jones.
Look how much money he got Daniel Jones.
The horror. No Daniel Jones. All right. So that one I think was an example of getting it right, but we also got it woefully wrong, as Deacon likes to point out. We loved Howard Cross Jr. He stunk. We liked what he showed on tape. Now, to be fair, we were basing a lot of it on the tape that he had the year before, where he was playing a lot of nose tackle, if you remember, and he was whooping ass on centers. We did make the comment where like he is kind of abusing like these college centers who are shitty. So we don't know how this is going to translate if he's got to go up against guards. Didn't translate well. He was terrible. So that's a big miss.
Yeah, I think both of us fall in love too easily with the undersized defensive tackles who make up with their athleticism, and they can just whoop slow-footed centers and guards in college, and it just doesn't work with big, fast guys in the NFL.
No. And since we're talking about failures, we might as well jump into our biggest failure, which was the quarterback evaluations of 2024. Let's get this out of the way. This is the mea culpa of mea culpas. Boy, did we fuck up. So what we got right was we were very firmly in Caleb 1, Drake May 2, or 1. I think we called them 1A, 1B, right? And nobody's close. And that was our firm take all the way through the process. I don't give a damn where they were drafted. I think 2 years in, that looks like a pretty strong take.
Yeah, I think you were more Caleb. Caleb is the clear one, but Drake May's like amazing right high him, and I was more like interchangeable.
Right. But I think where we both agreed was there was a big gap after those.
Gigantic gap.
Even though the other guys were good, these guys were different. That's how I looked at it. It wasn't a knock on the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I said I wasn't as high in Jaden Daniels, and we can get into that. And I still think there's some. Yeah, because we weren't low on Jaden Daniels. Like, we happily would have taken him, with the Giants pick. It was just, I actually would have I was fine even trading up for him if we had to. I thought he was good. I was just more like, I didn't think he was elite. I didn't think he was an elite prospect.
Can't respect a quarterback whose mom doesn't let him out of the house after 8 p.m. Sorry. We were too low on. No, to be fair, we were too low probably on Jaden. We would have taken him. I agree. We were both like, yeah, let's take him. We could trade up, whatever. I don't care. I don't think we valued him as high as we should have, and I think that's definitely on us. I think where I missed up on Jaden Daniels very firmly, I overestimated the negative value of him having been in college for so long, which is something we should talk about, thinking maybe he was just one of these guys who was taking advantage of being there against lesser competition that was younger. And I underestimated how much of a weapon his running ability was, because that was just, it's tough, man. That guy, once he gets going, he's tough to find. Like, he's very elusive. He gets first downs pretty consistently. He's a first down machine when he's healthy and when he's running. He's all, and there were just too many. He just had too many outs to be successful that I think I missed in evaluating him. I didn't love him, but he just has a lot of ways of like picking guys apart and being successful. And I think I undervalued that.
Agreed. Like, I could go regrade it today. I would still have a gap after Drake May and Caleb Williams personally, but but I clearly was too low on Jay Daniels, even though I don't think we weren't like crazy low, but there certainly was things that we messed up on. I think we overthought his arm strength to some extent. I think that's something I've taken away. Side note, I was thinking today is like, I don't know. The more I think about with arm strength, I really think we kind of overthink it at times. Where I think that there's the guys who have the elite arms, the Drake Mays of the world, the Caleb Williams of the world. But after that, it almost feels like, do you have enough of an arm to be a starting quarterback? And that's really it. It doesn't feel like
it's a threshold thing, right? It's not a competition. It's a threshold thing, right?
And some of it just comes down to when you're watching the tape. It's like, look, JJ McCarthy to me clearly looked like he had a better arm than Jaden Daniels on tape to me. But JJ also fucking ripped every single football as hard as he could into windows and shit like that. Well, that just wasn't Jaden Daniels' game. He was more of a touch quarterback. And, it's hard to compare when, it's hard to say, this guy's a better arm than this guy when it's just like, it looks like that in some senses. And I do think there is truth to it, but also it's just part of it's just like they went about the game differently.
Yeah. And you might as well get into like the failure there. Like, we were way too high on JJ. Now, I'm not writing off JJ's career, right? I think I just, like, that is a very weird situation going on over there. But all that said, he's a bust, right? Like, it's fair to say at this point, he's a bust. They're going to replace him. He's probably out of there. We were way too high on him. We went too hard into the paint to defend this guy,
Yep.
And I think that there were things that we ignored about him, which everybody was kind of screaming at us, and you guys were all right, which is he's just handing the ball off. He doesn't throw it enough. He's just handing the ball off, And I think at the end of the day, like, that lack of experience in terms of numbers of throws, even though I had plenty at starts, that lack of experience throwing the football really was killer, right? I think that you have to assume something didn't translate, and that might be it. It could be just he didn't have the experience throwing, and we kept arguing, well, he's a young player, but that kind of worked against him, right? Didn't have the throwing experience, and he went, the NFL is not a developmental league. I don't give a shit who your quarterback coach is. It's not a developmental league. If you're not ready to play, you're not ready to play, and they're going to throw your ass out after a couple of years. And that's where he is right now, right? Like they just got Kyler Murray. They just signed freaking Carson Wentz. He's out of there. Like he's going to go somewhere else to be a backup elsewhere. We definitely got that wrong.
Yeah, it's very, and I think that's one thing too. It's just like these kids don't get the time to develop anymore. And especially like Vikings seemed like such a good landing spot. And it was like, it's a fantastic place where you should have succeeded. But at the same time, they had to succeed. There was no taking your time with JJ McCarthy. It was win or you're gone. And he didn't win. He didn't succeed. He's gone. That's what it comes down to. They need to capitalize on this window. And now he's in a tough spot where he didn't show he's a good quarterback, and now he's a journeyman. He has to figure it out somewhere else, and we'll see if he can. But yeah, I think you're right. I think one big thing I learned was, and I think COVID taught us a lot of this, is how important starts are for these quarterbacks and passing reps. And like I said, he had the starts, he didn't have the reps. I still think the didn't trust JJ shit was all bullshit. I think that was a lazy narrative, but I do think that there was an aspect that he didn't get enough passes, and here's the thing, when there's a certain thing that worries you about anything we're talking about, short arms, this, whatever, if it doesn't show up on tape, it's not a problem. There was ideas where JJ had to develop. I think everyone understood JJ had to develop, and it was, hey, he's young. There's a lot of upside here. But they had room to go. While guys like, Bo Nix was a finished product. It was something we called out. We said, we were right where I remember a take I had was, I wouldn't surprise me if Bo Nix was the best rookie quarterback out of the two, even though I don't think he's the best long-term. And that lived up to it. You could easily argue that. But it worked really well in Jaden Daniels' favor, worked really well in Bo Nix's favor. Didn't work so well in Michael Penix's favor. That's a different discussion. But overall, I do think that it's something that we've learned to value more.
Yeah. Things that I learned also, like we're just talking about quarterbacks. We talk about things that we learned that we should have valued more in terms of what we got wrong. But there were things that we just kind of ignored that were there, and now we're not talking about the tape, just talking about just metrics that are worth bringing up that I think have been relatively predictive of success. Alex, credit to him, Mr. Jackson Dart, advocate himself. I remember he brought this up in one of our episodes. He brought it up in the chat. PFF again does a good job of compiling advanced data. Don't look at like just their grades. They have so much. If you're going to use PFF, learn how to use their advanced stats and how they, how they count, because that stuff is really useful. The ratio of what they call big time throw percentage to turnover worthy play percentage for a quarterback, and when you combine with like your total air yards, or downfield yards, like those metrics are really telling of what a quarterback's doing in college. And let's assume that they have enough throws. So basically, Daniels coming out in 24 and Jackson Dart coming out in 25, both over the previous 3 years had approximately 1,000 throws in the 3 years prior. So they had a lot of starts, threw the ball a lot. Similar stats, actually. In their final year, Jaden Daniels these were his numbers, Monty. He had a 79.6% adjusted completion percentage, 10.5 yards average depth of target, but his big time throw rate was 8.4%. That was outstandingly high. And his turnover worthy play rate was really low, 1.6%. And his deep yards were 1347, fourth in the class. So those were like, those are just numbers to keep in mind. And those are big time numbers. Jackson Dart last year when he came out, 77.7 adjusted completion percentage, very good. 11.9 yards average depth of target. This was really good. We chalk this up to like, this is the freaking offense, right? The Lane Kiffin. Excuse me. The what do you call it? The Kiffin offense. His big time throw rate 7.1%, fifth in the class. Turnover worthy play rate 2.2%, really low. Not quite as good as Daniels on those numbers, but very close. His deep yards, though, number one in the class, 1,517. So looking at those metrics, what those two had in common was they threw the shit out of the football, threw the ball deep a ton, had a lot of air yards, and despite throwing the ball a ton and throwing it deep, which is a tougher throw, they had a lot of big time throws with limited turnovers. That's what they did, right? And I think that's something we didn't, while we saw it, I know we knew it, we took account of it. I don't think we valued it as a metric that should have been valued as high as it should have been.
Yeah.
And it's a very real thing because they both translated immediately on those metrics.
Yeah. You know, it's something that we wrote off a little bit too fast, but it's also something you can't totally be like, hey, we found the magic solution. Like, obviously the tape comes first, but it's like, hey, you see something, you see promise here. Like, let's not just write off the offense he played in or things like that. Like, you see the NFL traits. We saw that. We said, like, hey, this guy has NFL starting quarterback traits. He just needs time. You know, and didn't, you know, it's hard.
That's where we underestimated Dart. I think we thought he needed more developmental time.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he was doing in college, we just didn't think it would translate right away. But it did. You know, it translated quickly. And I think there are some objective advanced metrics. That's what I think the point I'm making here is, and I think we will take account of that. Like, just, you can look at the stuff and be like, yeah, I mean, these numbers do tend to translate. You know, like guys who throw the ball deep and make big plays without turning it over, they're probably going to be good. You know, they're probably going to be good players, and you shouldn't discount it no matter where they are, especially if they have like the right metrics. Like, they've played a long time. They got a lot of yards. They've got a lot of throws. Conversely, Fernando Mendoza, 79% adjusted completion percentage, so very good. 9.8 average depth of target, good, not great compared to the other guys. Here's where he falls a little short. His big time throw rate, 5.7%. His turnover worthy play rate, 2.6%. So these are good, not great numbers. Now, he's good under pressure, but and his air yards, his deep yards is 955. Those guys are like 1,500. He's 30th in the, you know, in college this year. And he's this undisputed, like, first overall pick. In many ways, Fernando Mendoza is getting the Cam Ward treatment from last year right now, where he's not even being talked about with any negatives. Like, nothing. Like, they're not discussing, like, hey, is there a risk here at all taking him first? Like, but I think, again, if let's just use that as a gauge. I would bet that Mendoza is going to be a good quarterback. However, if there's any truth to this idea that, like, your ability to make big plays in college, you know, especially in your final year, and limit your turnovers is a thing that translates to success, there has to be some trepidation with Mendoza, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think you made a great point where it's like, there's the top quarterback in every class. They choose, you're the top guy, you have no flaws. And that happens every single year. And Mendoza is that by default this year.
Right.
And you know, it's interesting with him where something I wanted to bring up, I think this actually kind of naturally fits it, is one thing I think I overrated, and I think we both overrated, that kind of plays into this, is the mental aspect. And that's not me saying that the mental aspect isn't important for a quarterback. It's incredibly important. It's the most important thing. But it's also something incredibly hard to evaluate for when we're not talking to these kids. We're not watching them break down film. Hell, even if we were, we wouldn't be able to question them well enough of our current football knowledge to really break down if this kid knows what he's talking about or not. Because, you know, they know more about football than we do, these quarterbacks. If we're just being completely honest. And the thing with Mendoza is, to me, I think people might be overrating that he might get the Jackson Dart the JJ McCarthy treatment in some sense, where he showed up in the big games. You know, he won the national championship. He wasn't always great. He wasn't great in all these games. He wasn't taking over games all season, but when it mattered, he made the plays. He was, and despite not putting up these crazy numbers throughout the season, and really honestly didn't look like the special quarterback, when it mattered, he did, which is awesome. But is that something we should assume is going to translate? And I don't know if I've learned
that stuff does translate as much as I think it should, and I'd want it to. I don't know. Like for example, one thing is like people killed Caleb Williams for this. Caleb Williams lost to Utah like 2 years in a row. He didn't make the playoffs ever. He made some bad plays in the big moments, and now this is Iceman. Like he is the coldest quarterback in the NFL. He is clutch. He has the it factor, and that's something people question Caleb Williams about in college. And it's a hard thing to judge. And if there's a lot to like about Fernando Mendoza, but if you're evaluating based off what he did in the big moments, I think I'm learning that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's human nature, right? Like those are the moments everybody remembers, those pressure moments. And I think, especially when you're an NFL fan, you have memories of Eli Manning and guys like that in the biggest spots making big plays, and that's what matters most to you. You are kind of ignoring a lot of the other stuff, right? And I think you have to kind of take that into account. By the way, just for comparison, going through those numbers again, here's Cam Ward, 76.5 completion percentage adjusted, 9.8 average depth of target, so similar to Mendoza so far. Big time throw rate was 6.3. Turnover worthy play rate was 3.3. So he had a higher turnover worthy play rate than others. His big time throw rate was good. It was somewhere between a guy like Mendoza and Dart. Not as good as Dart. A little better than Mendoza, but his turnover worthy play rate's high at 3.3. With the depth of targets, it's a little lower than these guys. He did have a lot of deep yards, 1148. But again, this is a guy that, like, whether it's circumstance, team, whatever it is, he's having a little bit of a harder time adjusting to the NFL than Dart is. And again, I'm just using, this is not a criticism of him or his future. I think he'll be fine. But I'm just trying to look objectively at like bits of evidence that were available and looking how, at least through 1 year or 2 years of play, how these guys are translating. And it does seem to me like the guys who did it at a high level with a lot of big time throws and limited their turnover worthy plays in their final year of college, they seem to be the ones who are translating the best.
Yeah. And it's continuing to move and learning from our mistake. Quarterback's one of the hardest positions to evaluate. To me, there's some no-brainers. To me, Caleb Williams is a no-brainer. To me, Drake May was a no-brainer. But to the other guys, it can be hard. And honestly, even the no-brainers can miss sometimes.
Right. And just for the sake of fun, I want to go through one more guy that from this year. You ready for this?
Yep.
He would have had the best numbers in this class. He was our QB1, Trinidad Chambliss. Now he doesn't. Trinidad Chambliss had. Let's see, I don't have his adjusted completion percentage here for whatever reason, but his big time throw rate was 6.1. His turnover worthy play rate was 2.5. So it's actually had better numbers than Cam Ward in that area. And yeah, I got to pull up the rest of it. Like basically he had a lot of air yards. He threw for almost 4,000 yards. A lot of them were deep yards. I'll pull up his passing concepts in terms of passing depth. He had a ton of deep yards. He had 987 yards that were considered deep yards. Little, less than Dart and those guys, but actually really high with, Chambliss. I think, we had him as QB1 when we did our review.
Yeah.
He's 6 feet tall, maybe, even. He's still battling with the NCAA about his eligibility, unfortunately. But if you were going strictly by the numbers there, Chambliss would be a better bet to be successful than Mendoza.
Our formula liked him.
Yeah, exactly. Our grading system liked him. So
So
that's what we learned about quarterback evaluation. I think that was a big one to go over, right? What else? Like, what other things have we learned over the years reviewing these prospects, good and bad? What do you like? Where do you want to go next?
We could just go position by position. Some of them are going to be a little bit less in depth. I've continued to, I guess, a running back I've done well on, and I've continued to get confirmation on that. Where it feels like a lot of people zig when these combine numbers come in, when these 40s come in. A lot of people will like these guys all year, And then this 40 time will come in and be like, that won't play in the NFL. That happened with Bucky Irving. It happened with Cam Scatterbo. And it can happen, for the other way where they run a great times. Oh, this guy moves up my board. To me, if you want to look at a stat, it's missed tackles forced. That translates. Even like I like breakaway percentage, but it does not translate nearly as well as missed tackles forced. And I mean, just the tape, man. Don't overthink the tape. If like that's that simple. Running back is it's stop. You might as well not. Like I think most of the community would be better off not looking at a single combine score and just judging running backs this way, because I think people think way too hard into it.
Yeah. Missed tackles for us and yards after contact. If you're looking at, if we're going to go by data, when we're talking about running backs, like those are the two data points that probably work best. Again, if you're going to use PFF, we use it because it's just easy to use. There are other sites that track these things, but they're largely in the same ballpark. Yards after contact. What does that mean? You get hit. The first guy who tries to touch you, how many yards you get after that? It's that simple, right? And I think the guys who can get away from that first attempt to tackle and get more yards are usually the running backs who are more O-line independent. That's kind of what it means, right? Like they're not completely dependent on the O-line. There are guys who have tremendous raw stats, but they have dominant O-lines and they play against lesser competition. They don't have much yards after contact because they're getting these gaping holes. It's like they have the Philadelphia Eagles O-line in front of them, and that's not necessarily going to translate. So yards after contact is one, and missed tackles forced is an easy one. Like I think guys who forced a ton of missed tackles, especially per snap, they generally translate well. They tend to either be just powerful backs like Ashton Genty, or they're elusive like Jeremiah Love. But they find a way to get away from tacklers, and those are easy ways to gauge success. In general, I mean, it's not 100%, like nothing is, but I think those are good metrics to use if you're analyzing these backs. I mean, your guy, Bucky Irving, was phenomenal at those things, if I recall, right? His numbers were excellent.
Yep. 2 years in a row. I mean, at least he did it on a per touch basis. He was very, very good. He moved differently. He just was able to make guys miss consistently. Ran a bad 40 time. People overthought it, despite having great hands and just not being untouchable.
Let's look up. I'm very curious now. Let's go through 2024. I'm going to pull up these guys, by the way. And for these two running backs that you loved, right? Like Bucky Irving in 24 and Cam Scatterbo last year, two of your guys, right? So Bucky Irving, even though, what did he go in the fourth round? He was one of the higher graded running backs in college football in 2022 and 2023. He was like a top 10 type guy. His advanced metrics were spectacular. Like he was like 95th percentile or something in yards after contact, 3.99. Anything around 4 is like elite. His elusive rating, that's a metric that PFF comes out with, was 149.2. That was like 99th percentile. He had, let me see, 69 missed tackles forced, so 11th in college football. So really good. So he had a lot of the stuff that translates, and lo and behold, he looks like one of the better backs from that class, right?
Yeah.
Is he the best back from that class? I think he actually is, isn't he, right now?
Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Brooks hasn't played. Blake Corum has been good but rotational. Jalen Wright might be the best back from that class, but it's either him or Bucky Irving.
Jalen Wright hasn't been that good. I don't think. Am I crazy?
You think so?
I mean, maybe I'm crazy.
Well, he's rotational.
Maybe he had 228 yards and 2 touchdowns this year.
Why am I'm sorry. I'm thinking of A-Chain. My mistake. Sorry. I keep confusing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Benson hasn't done anything. Irving obviously is great. Ray Davis has not done much. Marshawn Lloyd has not done much. Tyrone Tracy's probably next best up in terms of production. And that's it. Like you have guys like down the list, there's nobody else that really is impactful except for like Kimani Vidal. And again, he's rotational.
And we love
Kimani Vidal. Last year, Cam Scatterbo, he was the 3rd highest graded running back according to PFF going to last year. His yards after contact, 4.09, elite, like 98th percentile. His elusive rating, 140.3, elite, 99th percentile. His missed tackles forced, 2nd in college football, 103. His yards after contact, 1,202, third in college football. Every metric, Cam Skadaboo, and it matched the tape, right? Like he was just really freaking impossible to tackle and bring down, and he just kept churning for more yards. He did it in college, and everybody just kind of thought it's not going to translate because he's this slow, small white guy, from Arizona State, and it translated like almost immediately, right, to the NFL. Now he didn't put up those kinds of numbers, but you saw the impact Cam Skadaboo had. It's undeniable. So. I think the point is like trust your eyes in the tape, but look at these advanced metrics. And some of these things are pretty good at predicting success. Pretty good. What's interesting to me, though, is like the guys who don't get a chance, who have really great numbers, and they haven't had a chance to play it. I think they're good bets to be good. So, like I'm going to find my guy here. I mean, Vidal, I think Vidal had like crazy stats, right? Like he was right up there with the best in the class. He's been really good, but his yards after contact was 3.58. It wasn't quite as high as these other guys, but he was solid. Where was Estime in this? Because I want to say he was somebody that I think his numbers were crazy good, if I recall.
I think they were very good, yeah.
Here he is.
He was just
4.27 yards after contact. 99th percentile. Elusive rating, 126.5, 98th percentile. 64 missed tackles, was 19th in the class. And yards after contact, 892, which was 9th in the class. So Estime is an interesting case. This is a guy who I think is now he's on New Orleans now, right? They grabbed him up after he bounced around a little bit. Like Denver never really gave him a shot. They're weird over there. And then he was on the Eagles practice squad. I think he had landed on New Orleans. He started to play. But he's a dude that I would bet on. Like, seriously, like if he shook loose, I would bet on Estime being a good running back in a committee.
Sure. And we liked him, but it's also like tape matters too, because I liked him, but I wasn't quite as high as I was like a guy with Bucky.
Right. So that's running backs, right? Like I think the advanced metrics matter there. I don't think we had much wrong there, honestly, in the running backs. I think it's pretty obvious who's good on tape and who puts up the big advanced metrics and where you can get things right. What about wide receiver? What have we learned in wide receiver?
I think I don't know. It's wide receiver. I've certainly learned some things. It's so hard to find consistency. It ultimately comes down to the tape, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of our takes. Like, I feel like we've been pretty good on them for the most part. Trying to think if we had any really bad takes there.
Not really. I mean, it's harder to miss on wide receiver. Honestly, it's pretty obvious who's good on tape. I will say that the stat that stands out again, like the most here, is there's one advanced metric that really stands out for wide receivers, and it's yards per route run.
Yep, it's an important one.
And I don't know if Momo's still here, but now we're going to talk about OB3 because we're going to get into this. But Malik Neighbors was one of our first players reviewed. He had a better yards per route run than Marvin Harrison Jr., who, make no mistake about it, was elite. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a 3.44 yards per route run in 2023 and came out and was, not quite the prospect people thought he would be. Malik Neighbors at 3.64 yards per route run. Like just top of the class, elite, bananas numbers through and through. His missed tackles force, everything was elite. And obviously on tape, you could just see he was different. Like his explosiveness, his ability to run through the stem, accelerate through the stem, catch the ball and be dominant with it. I just think that if you're looking for one stat that makes a difference, I do think that one can be really impactful, the yards per route run. The other ones and I'm forgetting the name of the pod that Momo like linked me in to watch today. But they were talking about target share.
Yeah, that's an important one.
And I'm forgetting the last one. I'm sorry. But basically, anything above about 25% target share on offense is essentially saying you're like the offense as a wide receiver one. And if you're a high target share guy, the other team knows you're getting the football. So if you're still able to produce despite that, it tells you how good you are. And these are all guys who have high target shares. They have a lot of yards per route run. So you know who's like really like top of the class this year in all of those metrics?
What's that?
OB3, Odell Beckham III,
Mm-hmm.
Skylar Bell. Yes, he's at UConn, but his tape is undeniably good. And I remember going through like a space on a weekend, like a week or so ago with DKit, arguing with Jabri about how good he was, and we watched. Oh, thank you! Wow, thank you, Giants Nation Show. Is that Bobby? Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it. That's awesome.
Congratulations on your 1 year, by the way.
Yeah,
it's been a little more than a year of Giants Nation. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, shout out Giants Nation. I think they have 30,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh, it's Danny King. Shout out Danny.
Shout out Danny. Well, congratulations to all you guys. I don't think it's Danny King.
I don't think so either. I said it and I'm like, wait, that's what Bobby would say.
Imagine like Bobby murdering somebody at 6'7" and like shooting them and saying there and saying, "My name's Danny King." I definitely didn't punch that one guy. Anyway, so what were we talking about? Receivers.
We're talking about Skylar Bell, OB3.
Yeah, Skylar Bell, OB3, right? So Skylar Bell, it had a, you know what is, so 25% is a good average, a good top end number for target share. You know what his number was this year? About 35%.
Mm-hmm.
Off the charts. He was the entire offense at UConn, still produced over 3 yards per route run. Just dominant in, against, obviously he played some shitty competition, but if you guys are interested in seeing Skylar Bell play, go watch UConn versus Duke, because that's the game I watch at D-Kid. In that game, he goes toe-to-toe with Chandler Rivers, who is, he's going to be drafted day 2, and he's viewed as like a starting, kind of like a Drew Phillips type. He's probably going to translate to nickel in the NFL, but he's a good physical cover corner. He's actually a very good cover corner. And he went up against him the whole game. He dogged him. Like, he completely dominated Chandler Rivers. So if you can do that with really shitty quarterback play at UConn, it says something. And you just have to watch the guy play. Like, his ability to break different types of coverage at the line of scrimmage, his different release packages, his start and stop tempo, his speed, his body control, it's all elite, right? We saw it on tape. You called him Odell you were the one who said he's like Odell. He pirouettes in the air to like get the football, and he has these massive 10-inch hands, just like Odell, to grab the football in the air. Had a lot of drops before this year, but this year he was at 3%. So that he seemed to solve that problem. Somebody's going to get a really good football player on day 2 with this guy. I hope it's us. I hope we can get a 3rd round pick and get him. But I actually really believe in this kid. I think he's going to be pretty outstanding if you believe those metrics.
So you brought up the college target share, which is an important one. Another one I've brought up in years past is the college dominator score, which is essentially the percentage of yards and touchdowns you have of the offense combined. There's another thing to look at, because not necessarily everybody's getting peppered as much targets, different types of wide receivers. But one website I use for this that I think is a good one, I'll share it with you guys right now, is Player Profiler. This is one I'll use. It's a fantasy website, but it's good for this stuff. And I have Skylar Bell up right now. And if you look here, you can see, I'll try to zoom in a little bit, but you see his college dominator score is 39%, which is 81st percentile. His college target share is 31.8%, which is 94th percentile. And his breakout age is 20.2, which 59th percentile, which is kind of shockingly high for a guy who was who's 23, 20, almost 24 years old. And essentially what that's saying is, you can look back to his time at Wisconsin or whatever, and you'd be like, oh, his stats weren't good. But all this basically says is like he got over like 20%. I think it's like over 20% of the offense essentially is when that breakout age takes place. And they set here his speed score 74th percentile, his burst score 98th percentile, his catch radius 82nd percentile, and they says best comparable player by their metrics is Sterling Shepard. Interesting enough.
Yeah, I think he's more explosive than Shep, but
he's got a little more size.
I do like it. Listen, if you got Sterling Shepard at pick 70, you'd be pretty happy. So, I think he's a good football player. people have criticized, I think Rad has brought this up, like, well, why wasn't he good at Wisconsin? You tell me who's good at Wisconsin. Like, like other than a running back, like Wisconsin is just terrible. Like that's an awful offense. They don't know how to run any kind of passing game. It's just been a consistently shitty program when it comes to developing skill players beyond running back. So and linemen, they're good at developing, like, they had Tanner Bortolini, right? So I mean, other than that, like Wisconsin doesn't do anything. So I think that I'm going to throw away those Wisconsin years. Why didn't he go to another big program? I have no idea. Maybe people didn't like him after the Wisconsin years. I have no clue. All I know is what I see on tape, and what I see on tape is outstanding, and the metrics match it. And when you have a big game, yeah, it's one game, but you play Duke against a guy who's clearly going to be a starter in the NFL, and you whoop his ass like that, I don't think you can ignore that.
Yeah, and it's a guy just when the quarterback's under pressure, he's saying, "Fuck it, Skylar Bell's down there somewhere."
That was the offense. It was
Yeah.
fuck it, Skylar Bell's there somewhere. Everybody knew it was going to him, and he still won consistently.
It was manufactured touches to Skylar Bell all game. Then, oh shit, we got to score a touchdown on this drive. I can't take a sack here. Fuck it, Skylar Bell's down there somewhere.
Yeah, but despite the fact there were screens and manufactured touches, he was still like near the top of the league in deep yards, and air yards, like air yards down the field. Like the guy was just everywhere. So yeah, I mean, maybe some of that is competition, but I don't think you can discount how good he is, and because he's at UConn, you're getting like Kirkland value out of the guy in the draft. There's no way he's going high in the draft. Like I'd be shocked if he went in the second round. I really would be. I don't think anybody's spending a second round pick. I mean, I guess I could be shocked, but I think he's probably a third round pick. And I do think you're getting a starting caliber wide receiver in the third round with this guy if you take him. And I think that's tough to find.
And if you told me he's sitting there with our fourth round pick, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't expect it, but people fall all the time. And I think that there's reason to think he could too.
He's one of those guys, Monty, where I really want, I mean, we all want the third round pick, but he's specifically a guy I want the third round pick for. Like, I think the focus in the draft is going to be build a defense, build the trenches. I would think, I don't know, but I would think, but if you get that extra day 2 pick, you have to believe that one of those day 2 picks is going to a playmaker, right? Assuming you don't take Love with the first pick. So if let's say you go Sonny, Styles, or Downs with the first pick, and with the second pick, you either trade down or whatever, but you take a lineman, like a Rutledge or whatever. If you have an extra day 2 pick, that's where you can swing on one of these playmakers, whether it's Skylar Bell, whether it's Ted Hurst, the kid out of Georgia State. There are guys that you can get that will be big playmakers, I think, or at least have that upside for you that you can take. And I really want that pick there. I think a lot of these guys are going to end up going kind of the end of day 2, early day 3, and they're going to be off the board. So I'd love to have a pick right there at the end of day 2 to be able to secure one of them.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those like Chiefs get it with a comp pick type thing.
It's going to be frustrating to watch as those comp picks come up. That's like, by the way, that's like the most painful part of the draft for me is watching the end of day 2. Yeah, just like those comp picks going at the end of day 2. And you're just like, the Giants are going to be picking at the top of day 3 anyway. And then you see like all the players you want to just go one after another picks, like 93 to 105. They're just coming off the board, right? Or 97 to 105 or whatever.
Except last year, Scadaboo and Bo found a way to stay, and Bo stayed another round.
We got lucky. Lucky. All right, so that's wide receiver. We did running back, quarterback.
Real quick to this, because just because I'm here, just comparing to that Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors conversation. I mean, Marvin Harrison has time left, and there's not much of a reason to point to why he hasn't succeeded yet. He's outside of he didn't do his testing. That's something you could look at, I guess. But he had a crazy college dominator score of 47.9 and a college target share of 31.8 with NFL receivers around him. But his breakout age was 20.1, which is good, very good, but it's not elite. And you go to Malik Neighbors, who wasn't quite as high as college dominator score, but he was right there in the college target. But his breakout age, 19.1. And I think breakout age is another important aspect to this, because it helps you, for example, that helps you with like a guy like Skylar Bell, where if Skylar Bell didn't do anything until the senior year, it'd give you maybe a little bit more pause, because it's like, hey,
is this guy, kind of what we talk quarterbacks, but I think this applies more to wide receivers. This guy just dominating because he's older and stronger and all of these guys. And when you can get that breakout age at a younger time, it usually translates to you succeeding earlier in the NFL. And I think it helps differentiate sometimes where you're looking at a guy and you're just like, is this just a guy who had randomly good numbers because he played in college football in a small program for 5 years?
Because he grew into a man's body and he's playing against kids, right?
Yeah.
Versus like him actually being that elite talent. 20 is about the age you're looking at, right? Like guys right around 20.
I mean, look here. I mean, we don't need to go into it, but Bryce Lance is an extremely interesting one, but you don't love that breakout age of 22.
We watched Bryce Lance that same day, and I was not as impressed, unfortunately. He has a little bit of a dropsies issue. I think he's a very good talent in terms of athleticism, but I think he's likely more of a gadget type, in the NFL. I mean, there's probably more correlations to Christian Watson there than I was comfortable, saying before. But the more I watched him, I'm like,
but he's got that great yards per route run, and somebody's going to take him high. I said it to you when we were talking the other day. I'm like, look, if Christian Watson can go whatever, it was like 38, then why the hell can't Bryce Lance, who had better stats and is a better athlete, not go that same spot? So we'll see.
He could. Although I would say the Christian Watson experiment, would you view that as being a successful use of the 36th pick or whatever he went?
No, but I think it could have been if he didn't get hurt so much.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like sometimes, like when you're, whether it's a lazy comp or not, when you're comp to that guy so consistently, if that guy was a bit of an outlier, and he was when he was taken, and then he didn't hit a home run at the NFL level, like that does hurt your status. I think that does have like a psychological effect on GMs taking you. So I don't think he's going that high. I'll be honest, I'd be surprised if Bryce Lance is a day 2 pick. I think he's going to be taken day 3, but we'll see. I mean, I think with Watson, you almost knew he was going day 2 with all the buzz around him. And he went very early day 2, but I kind of am surprised. I'd be surprised if Lance went day 2. He might, but I don't think he's getting quite the same buzz.
He hasn't been, no.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to go through every position in great detail, but those are fun to go through there. Tight ends, there's not much to discuss there. We talked about it a little bit. The big stat is obviously going to be Yak, and that's it.
I think, you look at the successful tight ends around the league, and it's guys who can get Yak. It's guys who can block, guys who can get Yak. Sometimes a lot of the bigger guys, if you can, but it's not necessary. Like, I think the best comparison I can bring up where I applied this and I liked it better is there was a year the Packers went ahead and they drafted Luke Musgrave, who I hated. I was not a Luke Musgrave guy. And then they drafted Tucker Kraft. And I really like Tucker Kraft. He's a guy who could force me tassels and fit that prototype. Look who's the one who hit out of the two.
Right.
And Tucker Kraft was taken much later. Not much, but Musgrave was taken very high. And it was like a full round or 2 after.
It's really interesting. Brugler was talking about this on the Athletic show recently, and I think they did their tight end part of Building the Beast. He just said that, for whatever reason, NFL teams, what they really are looking for at the end of day 2, early day 3 are blockers. Like they almost don't give a shit if you're good at receiving and getting Yak at that level. If they think you're good as a receiver, they're taking you early on, like late first, second round. That's where they're taking you. After that, they're just looking for guys who can be tight end 2s and 3s who are assets in the blocking game, which I found interesting,
Yeah.
But there are definitely guys who will go later who are very good at Yak. A lot of them are at small schools. But I think it's a good metric to find a productive tight end. And I think that's what you want to look at. Let's go to the defense real quick.
Yep.
I wouldn't say there's any major advanced stat on the interior defensive line, but you and I talked about this. There's something we looked at on the film that I think has taught us where we might be overrating players. And that's interior D linemen who are just really good at stopping the run. And they are solid at stopping the run, but they don't do much as pass rushers, and specifically, they don't push the pocket back. I think that's something we've seen on tape in guys who don't translate great.
They're not getting tackles for loss. They're not diagnosing and finding something in the backfield. They're not collapsing the pocket consistently. They're holding their ground. They can eat double teams, and then they're not much else.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you like them when you watch them because you're like thinking to yourself, well, I need a run stuffer, right? And this guy's great at just holding the line of scrimmage and eating blocks and stopping the run. Not that those guys don't have value, but I think they tend to get limited usage in the NFL. If they're
going high. They're going very high in these drafts.
Right. So examples of that recently, and 2 of them out of Michigan, actually. 3 of them out of Michigan, actually. The lesson is don't take Michigan D tackles, unfortunately. But Kenneth Grant was a big guy. Didn't get a lot of push, right? He was a guy who was like a 2-gapper.
Who I didn't like. D-Kit keeps trying to put false narratives on me.
Hasn't done much so far, right? Mazzie Smith, first-round pick, didn't get a lot of push. First-round pick, total bust. A guy we liked a lot was Chris Jenkins, and we thought, okay, this is a solid run. Like, this is a high floor, stuff the run, D tackle, like just, he's a lunch pail guy, NFL bloodlines, yada, 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 elite run stopping grade. The one thing that always played with great leverage, all the stuff you'd like to see on tape, like almost like a wrestler approach. But we talked about it when we reviewed him. Doesn't get push, right? He doesn't get push. He just kind of holds the line of scrimmage. He's potentially a cut candidate in Cincinnati, even though he was a 2nd-round pick. Guys that don't push the pocket on the interior D line generally don't make it.
And I think something that we did with Chris Jenkins. We weren't huge Mazzie Smith fans, but we did to it with him a little bit. Was like, look, if you're a great athlete, like, hey, maybe they'll figure it out in the NFL. Like, they'll become a pass rusher because they have the size and these traits, and it just doesn't seem to be how it works. Like,
yeah. So who's at risk this year of being a pocket non-pusher that's getting a lot of buzz?
I mean, the Ohio State kid,
Caden McDonald.
And
I liked him. I still like him. People love him. He's young. He's 21. And he was really great for Ohio State this year as a run stuffer. But you pointed it out in his film, and you weren't wrong. That pocket doesn't go backwards. It just stays. It doesn't go forward. It doesn't go back. He just holds the line of scrimmage where it is, right? And yeah, Monty was a big
propaganda,
big Tyree Wilson guy here. But
motherfucker.
But like, it's gonna be I stand by what I said. I like Caden McDonald for what he does, right? He's really good at eating double teams and disengaging and stopping the run. I think he's very good at those things at the line of scrimmage. But I acknowledge, like, the guys who have had that profile in the past have not panned out. And these are guys who are 1st and 2nd-round picks, and they have not panned out at the NFL level. They've been underwhelming, at least, And McDonald fits the profile of those guys. He's the guy that's like getting buzz in the 1st and 2nd round, who perfectly fits that profile. Like, he just doesn't push the pocket. You watch him, the pocket just does not move backwards. He's not getting pressures by collapsing guards. None of that's happening with Caden McDonald. So it's just something to watch. Now, he is 21, so there's an argument to be made, Monty, that he's strong as shit. He's developing, and he's going to do that. But we haven't seen it at the collegiate level. There's no guarantee it's happening.
Yeah. And it's interesting where I'm kind of looking at this, just interesting enough. I'm looking at run stop percentage, which is one thing we've looked at. It's been part of it. And it hasn't translated that well. I'm looking at 2023, for example. Funny enough, guy from this draft is in there at UCF. Lee Hunter was number 1 in the country at 13.3, but below that, T'Vondre Sweat, 12.8. T'Vondre Sweat's been decent, but Chris Jenkins, 12.6. Mason Graham, 11.9, but like Howard Cross, TJ Sanders, like, I don't know. It's nothing kind of like jumps off. See Tyler Williams way down here. There's a little bit to it, but another one we like is pass rush win rate. There's been a little bit to that, but yeah, you gotta watch the tape, I think, a lot with all these positions, but
This one for sure.
It's just, it's
I know
I don't know
what-
if the grades. This is why I said I think the grades and the stats on D tackle don't tell you what we're like. It doesn't seem to tell the story, and maybe we're using a small sample size. And I'll acknowledge if I'm wrong next year when this does play out. But it like just watching the tape of these guys was set. We've watched a ton of guys these 3 years, right? And it seems to me like the guys who are translating, the Byron Murphys, those types of guys. Before he got hurt, what's his face that went to San Francisco? It was an edge, but he's really a D tackle. Mikal Williams. Like those guys are pocket pushers. They drive the line back. Obviously Mason Graham, he's successful. He's a guy, and that maybe not as successful as you want for the 5th overall pick, but he's obviously still a good player. He drives the pocket back. The guys who are struggling are guys when you watch them on tape, they don't. And to me, that's just something when you're watching tape to pay attention to. It's something we've observed, and I don't hear anybody else talking about that. But if you ain't pushing that pocket, you may not translate. You know who does push the pocket in this class? Lee Hunter.
Lee Hunter does push the pocket.
Yeah. Can't jump for shit, but who cares? Fat boy can't jump. Big deal, right? That fat boy can push the pocket back. He's a fucking Mack truck.
He just walks it back.
He walks guys nice and slow, but he's getting underneath you and driving you into the quarterback consistently. Walter Nolan, we liked Walter Nolan's tape. We all liked him, I think. Ubiquitously, he was a guy that pushed the pocket back a lot, consistently, always in the quarterback's lap. Those guys translate. Obviously, look at Dexter Lawrence going back further. Always walk the pocket back. Christian Wilkins, free agent, by the way, walk the pocket back. So, there are a lot of guys who push the pocket back. So when you're watching these DTs, my advice is look for that trait. See who's pushing that pocket and who's not, and maybe pay more attention to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an important part. And I still like pass rush win rate, but I'm looking at it and I think the one theme I'm seeing here between the guys who work out and the guys who don't work out is the undersized guys just don't seem to work out. Like we loved Aeneas Peebles, and maybe he could still work out.
Well,
but
he was used sparingly, to be fair. Like he was used as a rotational guy.
But his pass rush win rate led the country 2 years in a row. And this size is the reason that didn't translate the way it could. You see Howard Cross here. You see, there's
bigger, stronger guys who push the pocket. By the way, Darius Alexander was a pocket pusher, big time in college, and you saw that this year. He's a good pass rusher as an interior D lineman, and he was actually very good in the run game in college. I think people have a little bit of selective memory in talking about his college tape. He was a good run stopper, and he struggled at the NFL level. But I think I would make a strong bet that with a better defensive scheme and a year under his belt, that Darius Alexander, we're all looking for that D tackle who's going to be good. And I think for good reason, and we're going to probably take someone in the draft, sign somebody. I'm willing to make a big bet on Darius Alexander having a second-year breakout season at D tackle. I think the stuff he has, the size, the length, the pocket pushability, the batted footballs, that stuff that should translate. And I'm willing to bet he has a big leap in year 2.
Yeah. I think a lot of people expected it to come earlier because of the age, but I'm not going to roll out that he's going to take the jump despite that.
And here's an interesting D tackle name I know it's not that interesting, but Peter Woods being slept on big time. He's now down in maybe day 2 territory. It's crazy how far he's fallen. I think he's probably going to sneak into round 1, but this is a guy who had an inconsistent second year, like most of the guys on that Clemson team with the new DC. This is a situation where the flashes matter. What he's able to do physically to destroy interior offensive linemen when he's locked in is something that most guys cannot do. I'd bet on that trade.
I would absolutely. One thing I'll say, I think I was never that high on him. I think he's closer to where he's getting rated now than when people are calling him a top 10 pick.
He is, but he's also I think he's being underrated right now. I do think he goes in the 20s in the end. I think
that's where he should go personally.
Right. And I think he's going to be a good NFL player. but maybe he's a little bit more dependent on coaching. A couple of guys mentioned the chat that are going to be who are good. Like Big Citrus is a good pocket pitcher. Dominic Orange, Capart from Clemson, another Clemson guy. A good pocket pusher. These are good pocket pushers. Something to pay attention to. Go back and watch their film if you guys have access to it. See who pushes that pocket, and then just pay attention. Keep a mental note of who translates, because it seems to me like that seems to be an issue here.
And just, we're spitballing to some extent with something for us to keep our mind on and trying to learn and seeing if this, is something that is going to work.
Yep. All right. Edge rushers, very quickly. We were huge on Jared Verse and Laya Tulatu. Maybe those are not hot takes, but we were very firm on those guys. Big hits. We liked Abdul Carter, maybe not quite as much as other people. I think we had more reservation about Abdul Carter being like
still a blue chip, but we were like, I had him below Mason Graham, for example.
Yeah, liked him, didn't love him as much as others, but glad we have him here. Obviously, he's a very talented young man, but he also showed some of the inconsistencies we were worried about. Hopefully, that translates to to better play in year two. Guys we were less high on were actually and I think we're right about this, are some of the speed only guys. And I think the consistent theme we're seeing is the guys who are going to be quick translators to the NFL are like the speed to power guys. It's not just like the quick first step guys. It's the dudes who have leverage, powerful hands, and can use that burst off the line of scrimmage to lock into a tackle's chest and drive them backwards. Like consistently, those guys are good. They translate, right? It's not just the guys who like spin move off the edge and get there. It's actually the guys who can win with power and also have some other moves. So Jared Verse was that guy, right? He was an overwhelmingly powerful edge. I mean, look at him at the NFL. The guy's amazing. Will Anderson was that guy, right? I mean, it's an elite level, but still the same kind of player.
People overthought Will Anderson. Not that he went low or anything. People are going to have revisionist history, but like people were just overlooking him as an elite prospect. They were just, it was all about Jalen Carter, and it was not about Will Anderson. It was so odd to me.
Yeah. What's the other guy I'm thinking of? So the guys that didn't translate as well, like some of the speed guys, like
Dallas Turner has been kind of in the middle.
Yeah, he's very much a speed guy, right? Like I think just the speed only guys. I should rather say. I won't.
Kayvon.
Yeah, Kayvon was a first step quick twitch guy, and like he hasn't translated to the level you want to see. Now I will say he's gotten better the last year or so, but if you look at why, it's because he's developed the power in his game. That's the reason he's better.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to look at because you can't overcorrect on these. I think, the main things we've looked at, I do think first step is still extremely important. I think it's something that the NFL values and is why these guys will always go high if they have that elite first step. Production, you got to have multiple moves. Like, Kayvon was a guy who had one move and that hurt him for a while. I don't know. There's a little bit to be learned. Some of it's kind of just, it when you see it to some extent.
So guys in this class that I'm looking at and saying, who do I think, if I use those parameters, who do I think is a safe bet to translate? So obviously our best player in the draft, Ruben Bain, I don't give a shit about his arm length. He's a fucking Mack truck. Like he puts his arms out, he hits you in the chest, and you're going backwards. And he wins with power, he wins with speed. He's got it all.
I don't think he's a consensus blue chip, but to me, he's that tier. I don't care. He's the best player in the draft, in my opinion.
And by the way, this is a good point. Burns wins with speed. Yes, he does. I'm not saying that the speed guys don't translate. I'm just saying, like, in general, I think themes we're looking for guys who are higher probability for success.
He can't be one thing. I think it goes both ways too. Like, we like Scorton a lot. He hasn't looked that great. He was more of a big size guy. Like,
I think Scorton's been good. I disagree.
Okay.
I think for the role he's played, I think Nick Scorton's been good. And I think he's going to keep getting better also. Like, I think that's a guy who he played a good role on that Carolina defense. I mean, look, let's pull up his stats real quick, right? I'm going to do it just for the sake of argument. Like for a rookie, he logged 773 snaps. He had 37 pressures and 8 sacks. And I mean, that's good, dude. He had 23 run stops.
PFF, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah. PFF.
So it's counting half sacks as full, but still.
No, but still, that's a lot of production
Yeah.
for a rookie, you know. And I think he mostly does it with, again, we're not talking like necessarily Pro Bowl, all pro stuff, but these are productive players in the NFL. That's what you're looking for.
That's fair.
You know who didn't translate is his teammate Shamar Stewart. You know, did you remember like the game that convinced me that Stewart was a gimmick and Scorton was the real deal was the game against what was it? Against Armand Membu against Missouri. So if the A&M edge rushers that year used to alternate left and right, they would change sides. And Membu was the right tackle, if I recall, right? Was he right tackle last year? I believe so. But whenever Skerritt lined up against Membu, he actually played him tough. Like they were stalemates a lot of times. A lot of times Membu won, but there were plenty of reps where Skerritt got the best of him. And it was because he had that stiff arm strength and then the spin move counter, and he was able to get some pressure on the quarterback. Shamar Stewart was just obliterated rep after rep after rep by Membu. It wasn't even close. And it was very obvious to me, like, who was the stronger edge rusher. And I think that's translating so far in the NFL. So that's something I'm looking at. You know, just and it's not arm length. Like somebody's making a point. It's just about raw upper body power, right? I think that's what we're talking about. Like, can you stiffen that arm up and knock the shit out of the guy playing tackle? Like, I don't care how long your arms are. It helps to have longer arms, but you know, freaking Bane doesn't have long arms. But those once he gets his hands into you, you're toast.
Yeah.
So.
It's an interesting thing to try to like, because I'm trying to look back and it's not like one thing. It's like, I think it's a very production heavy position. I think production is very important. You look at, you know, the passer's win rate. You just look at the normals, you know, sacks, pressures, you know, tackles for loss, I think is a really good one to look at. Just make plays in the backfield. That was a big Will Anderson was big on that. You know, athleticism is obviously important, but I think it's hard without the production. Obviously, you know, there's guys who have figured it out. I mean, Trayvon Walker has become a good player in this league. Owe eventually became a decent player in this league, but like
high floor.
It didn't happen overnight.
No, but they got there.
They got there. So
and they got second contracts. They got paid.
But you know, it's so there is an aspect of betting on traits, but there's also like I'd rather bet on production, and I don't know. I wouldn't. It's so hard. I don't really know where. I think I'm still a position I'm learning on, and there's not a certain one answer to the equation here.
So in this class, the guys using those metrics, right, that we just went over, the guys who I think are obvious like hits are the top guys: Bane, David Bailey, Mesidor. Those three I think are super safe bets for being productive, high floor, high caliber NFL edge rushers because they can win with power and they have a little bit extra in the tank, right? And in the case of Bane and Bailey, a lot extra. The guys who I think are going to go high, that I think have a high bust potential based on the same metrics, are actually Keldrick Falk and Cassius Howell. I think those two scare me. Like, I don't think I would take them. I mean, Falk is a big dude, but we saw his tape. Like, we liked him, but it's like, I don't see that raw power on tape, you know, that these other guys put on display. He doesn't have like those explosive beat you up hands, you know, as soon as he gets them on you, even though he's got this huge length. And Howell, I think, is just small, and I think it's hard for him to do it. So that, I don't know how you feel about it, but that's kind of where I am with those top guys.
It's funny the way you say it, because you just mentioned like two polar opposites in some sense. You pick the big body length guy, and then you pick the guy who just
small guy.
It's
just the way they play.
I agree with you, and that's just, you know, it kind of makes it hard to describe exactly what, like, you know it, and we can take it case by case, but it's multiple guys that kind of fit the description.
Exactly. But along those notes, there are two guys who I think, well, three guys I'm going to say that I think are really good bets later in the draft, who I don't know if they're getting enough praise for what they do. Their production matches it, their metrics, their play style matches it. So one is Bailey's teammate, Romello Height,
Mhm.
I don't know why he's not getting more love, dude. He's a good football player. Now, he's a little smaller, he's a little older. He's like 25. Maybe that's the reason. But he's 6'3", 240. He's like an average, he's a slightly undersized edge. But his game, he's got what I'm talking about. He's got that power. He's got that ability to use like counter moves off that power. I like his game. I mean, I think he's a good value get later in the draft if he falls.
Mhm. Also, the
But
testing time might not line up, but he looks quicker to me than Bailey on tape.
yeah, I mean, not as good a player, but I agree. He's pretty
No,
quick.
but you get an open rush, he's getting to the quarterback first.
But the two guys that I really like from this metric, dude, especially like that, like just that run over the tackle, like edge, Derek Moore from Michigan. Like he is a beast. If you watch his tape, just consistently overpowering tackles, he's explosive off the snap, but he doesn't, it's really that explosive speed to power stuff like that. He's not like this twitchy athlete, but he's really explosive off the snap, and he gets his arms into guys and he puts dudes on roller skates so fast at edge. Is he going to be some top 5 edge rusher in the NFL? Probably not. But I think he's a good bet to be an edge setter and a pocket pushing physical force at edge. And I mean, I think that's a high floor prospect. I'm taking that guy day 2 if I need an edge rusher like all day long. The other guy who I think is exactly in that same mold, who gets zero love for whatever reason, is the kid out of Tennessee, Joshua Joseph. So have you watched him yet?
I don't think so.
Now he's smaller than Moore. They're like the same height. Moore's like 260 at 6'3". Joseph's is 6'3", 240. But it's a very similar kind of a play style. That same raw power. I think these guys translate. So guys, I'm going to be watching their NFL career and see how they all translate.
Yeah. And we kind of touched on it, but the question here, how much do you guys value production for these pass rushers? Stewart had a little productions last year in college, and I don't know, it's a case-by-case basis to some extent. Like I think that athleticism gets overvalued to what I'm comfortable with doing, but it has worked out when the teams have taken shots on him a lot, like Trayvon Walker I mentioned, Oweh I mentioned, but Jamar Stewart's not necessarily working out. But it took some time with Oweh. It took a little time with Trayvon Walker, and they picked Trayvon Walker over clearly a better player in Aiden Hutchinson. That's I'm gonna go with the production every time there.
It depends on how you define production. So Stewart, if he couldn't close out plays with sacks, that was his thing. He could never get a sack, but he had a shit ton of pressures, right? Yeah, he had a lot of pressures. He had a lot of, and he had a good pressure to sack rate. And his physical, people just looked at him physically and were like, this guy's going to translate, right? Like, he's just going to translate. He's huge. He's athletic. But to your point, he couldn't convert it into sacks. And I think that matters. I think the ability to close out a play with a sack, to close out a play with a tackle for loss, I don't know if you can teach that skill. I don't know if you can acquire that skill at a high level at the NFL level. If you're not doing it in college, I don't know if I want to bet on that at the NFL level. So I think it actually matters a lot. All right. We got a few more positions. We're at 2 hours, but we have plenty of time. So let's keep going.
I honestly don't even know how much I have to say about the last 3, so we'll see what we have. But I'm still, I think these are some positions, still a lot to learn at. Off-ball linebacker, I think, is the next natural one, but it's been some bad off-ball linebacker classes we've been looking at. This is the best one in a while. It's hard to judge.
There's not much to go by on the last couple of years. I mean, the guys we weren't on it, I'll be honest. Because we often did linebacker reviews at a time where a lot of the best players who were under the radar didn't even declare themselves. And the best guys in the last couple of classes were Carson Schwetzinger, obviously. What's his name? Edgerrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson. Those end up being the best players. And I think we were okay with those guys, but those were not phenomenal classes. I don't know what to make of that yet. I think this class will tell us.
The first year, it's hard to say. We didn't really have our point system, but I can look at it real quick, what we had. We had Harold Perkins, who for 2 years in a row graded pretty well for us. We'll see. He's an interesting one. He's a project.
He's tore his ACL. It's a
Mhm.
hard eval.
Landon Barton graded pretty well for us at the time, but he got hurt and he hasn't done anything.
He's actually, no, that's not true. He had a good year last year with
Mhm.
our current DC. Like Landon Barton actually played well.
No, he hasn't. He's coming out this year.
Who am I thinking of? I'm
I don't
tired.
know.
Oh, Landon Barton's a kid at Utah. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of something. I'm thinking of Cody Barton.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Danny Stutzman, you were higher on than me.
Yeah.
We were
Not
split.
doing anything in New Orleans.
Yeah. Jalen Walker is really more of a edge guy, so that
He's very good, but he's an edge. Yeah.
Barrett Carter, you were higher on than me, but we were both had decent grades on him.
Well, we should stop there for a second.
Yeah, because that's really the last guy.
Barrett Carter is a guy that I was high on because at the time we were looking. I mean, I just think I looked at linebackers differently. I feel like the NFL game has evolved since then a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Barrett Carter is smaller. He's more explosive. He's faster. And what I loved about him was really his ability to rush the passer and blitz, and be like a weapon in pass rush. And I thought he had the athleticism to go sideline to sideline, but to be fair, he didn't do a lot of it, right? Like he didn't play like that traditional Mike role in college. Jeremiah Trotter played that role next to him. So I think I like that about him. But if you look at the way the game is going, are we really valuing these like downhill only kind of linebackers anymore?
Yeah.
I think you need the guys who can be like the big monsters who can plug up run lanes and take away the run game and actually have some coverage ability in zone.
Yeah, and it's interesting with coverage because I feel like there's not a lot of good coverage linebackers in the NFL. When they are, they're valuable, but it feels like a lot of just guys who can do it. It's like cans and cannot at the coverage position for linebackers. It feels like.
I think we'll learn a lot about linebacker from this year and how we grade.
It's almost like a similar comparison. Almost feels like receiving at the running back position. Like there are some elite special guys like McCaffrey, like Gibbs. Like there's a 2 or 3 of these guys who are elite, and then it's just guys there's a lot of the guys who can do it, the guys who can catch and be a weapon, and the guys who cannot contribute there, and it's you can or you can't.
Agreed. All right, let's go to safety. There wasn't another position there wasn't a bunch around the last couple of years, but the ones that stand out were from the Tyler Nubin class. I think that's the interesting class to discuss. Our safety one was Cam Kitchens, if I recall. I don't know if he was. I think he was still safety one at the end of it, or maybe he wasn't. I don't recall, but he was. I mean,
he was our first time around for sure.
Yeah,
it was close, I think.
And then he kind of fell in the grading, and I think he fell across the league.
He had a bad year.
Also because the Miami defense was using him kind of improperly, to be fair. Like they had him not playing center field. They had him all over the place doing different things, and they asked him to do a lot. It hurt his game. But I think when we started looking at his film from the year before and the early part of 2023, he was the guy that was all over the field. He was the guy who had like that true like sideline to sideline range as a center field safety. He was getting a bunch of turnovers. He was great in helping in run support. He could turn and run with receivers. He was that guy. And he got undervalued by a bad year, but he's clearly been the best safety from that class, right? He's largely been a starter with the Rams, an important piece of that secondary. He got taken in the 3rd round. Whereas Tyler Nubin, we both liked, but we pointed out his deficiencies, and we said he's a solid high floor player, but he's not a center fielder. He's a half field guy, probably better coming downhill than going backwards, right? Better in run support, good tack. He was a good tackler in college. I don't know what the hell happened to him. What have we learned from safeties?
So a question I was going to ask you about this, because I think this is the main takeaway, is like, where did we fuck up on Tyler Nubin? Because this doesn't look like the same player we scouted, and it's like, is this something where we think that this is going to get turned around with the right coaching, or do we think that this is like we just missed, and where the hell we got to go back and find where we missed?
It's so hard to know because I really feel like the Shane Bowen defense was so historically awful that I cannot imagine that the development of these players was anything good. And I felt like Newman was a better player as a rookie than he was as a second-year player.
He was a good
regressed out
tackler
there.
as a rookie. He just couldn't
And
cover. He was actually a good tackler.
my honest take on Newman is this. I've said this before. They took him. This is Joe Shane's failure as a GM. He took him immediately after letting Xavier McKinney go. And he literally was like, oh, we got to get a safety, you know? And he almost assumed like, oh, Newman can be like McKinney. They couldn't be further from each other in terms of profile as a player, right? McKinney was that full field, center field safety who could do everything and had that kind of elite range. Newman didn't, even at his best, Newman didn't have that. What he was good at was covering half the field or less, coming downhill, stopping the run. And actually, he was a good ball hawk when he was used in that way. And they drafted him and they almost immediately try to convert him into like this center field safety in that cover three system, that cover one, cover three kind of shit that Shane Bowen ran. And I feel like he just couldn't get to the football, right? Like he just didn't have the range and the athleticism to get there when he was responsible for a lot of field. I think that hurt him in the beginning. And I think what ended up happening, honestly, is that his confidence just got shot. After a while, like the guy, he just got shot out there to the point where he was trying to overcompensate. He was overrunning plays, fucking up his tackles. Like he is a dude that got mentally fucked by this team's defensive scheme, in my opinion.
I was about to say the exact same thing. I was thinking about it as you spoke about it, and I'm thinking, who was Tyler Newman in college? And Tyler Newman wasn't this phenomenal athlete, which you pointed out isn't that big of a deal at the safety position. But he was a guy who, he modeled the game after Antoine Winfield because that was a teammate of his, and you saw that he played aggressively, he came downhill and made plays. He played his ass off. He came down hard, and he was very just aggressive. He was a guy who, had good reads on plays and would make moves before the ball was thrown to put himself in the right position. And it feels like a lot of that disappeared because he doesn't trust what he's seeing anymore. And he's not putting himself in the right position because he's not just letting himself just naturally play his game. That's kind of what I feel like. We're gonna have to learn still from it, and we're gonna see what's happened next year. But that's kind of my takeaway with them. And I don't know what to take from that.
He will be one of the more fascinating watches under Jannard Wilson and this guy Delicio that we brought in from the Chiefs and the Ravens. These are secondary guys. They know how to develop and utilize players in secondary. If we see them just dump Tyler Newman quickly, whether it's cut him or bury him on the depth chart, I think that tells you that they just don't believe in the talent and they're done with him, and I think that might be it for him. But if they give him even a semi-prominent role, this will be a test of how good they can coach, because I do think there's talent there. I still believe there's talent there and there's utility there. Maybe it's not pick 47 utility, but there's a good player in there. I really believe that. And if they can get that out of him, that's a big win for the Giants, because you need safeties who can play different roles. And listen, if you take Caleb Downs, he becomes safety 3, and he's going to get a more limited role, and we'll see. But I do think Newman is a guy that, if I'm if I had to bet, I think Jannard Wilson would look at him and say, there's a more talented player here. I can work with this. I just got to figure out if this kid is mentally fucked, can we fix him? Because I really believe he was mentally fucked by the end of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other year, I mean, it's worth looking at is this last year, because there wasn't really much safeties in that. There was the 2 we talked about, and there were some guys in this year, the year that we covered. A guy that we loved, Andrew Makuba. He was a guy we were very high on, and he went way higher than most people had him going. The Eagles took him very high, and he's been okay. I think there was some validation in where he went, but we're still to see if it translates in the league. Our safety 1 from that class was Xavier Watts, and that one's hit tremendously so far.
He's been great. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what we had here in Xavier Watts. They said we have pros for coverage ability, burst in athleticism, physicality, ball skills, football IQ, run defense, and versatility. And his cons were aggression, man coverage limitations, deep coverage, and urgency.
We're pretty much on the money there. I mean, he's a really good player. And I was a little surprised that Atlanta took him, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because they already had Jesse Bates. But man, he's been an asset to that defense. And I think we had it right with there. I think so. What are we looking for as a question? Like, what are we looking at these safeties? There are different types of safeties. There's the guys who are your center fielders, who are the rangy dudes who you want to be a little bit more athletic, a little faster, who can basically, cover the whole field in the back half, but that can also make plays in the football. You want them to be able to have closing speed and make plays in the football. Then there are the guys who are more like the traditional box type safeties. They're not quite always the box, but these are guys who are more underneath safeties, let's say, I expect them to be stronger. I expect them to be like just safety valves in the run game. And I expect them to be able to make plays coming downhill on the football, on everything in the intermediate to short area. Those are the type of players that, they're different players, but I actually think we've been pretty dead on about most of these guys and how they would translate. Newman is the one glaring miss in terms of, his production, but I don't think it's a miss in terms of how he was utilized. His translation just doesn't match what he was supposed to do in the NFL. And I feel like I think the Giants fucked him up more than anything.
He played like the guys we liked here with like Makuba and Watts. He played aggressively and stuff a lot of that stuff I think was similar. One name I don't necessarily know if we were wrong about. I don't know how to Malachi Stark.
We just weren't as high as others on him. I think look, I don't think we viewed him as a pure safety. I think we said this guy's more of like he's a nickel. Yeah. And I think that's largely what he is. I think that he's a good nickel. He plays that safety nickel hybrid a lot like Brian Branch. He's not as good as Brian Branch, but he's quite good. I know Ravens fans have been down on him, but I think he's still a good player. I just never got the hype that this guy was going to be like, some superstar. I just didn't see that when we watched him. And thus far, he's good, not great.
Yeah, I mean, we said positive, like we said, he carried the wide receivers well and showed the ability to stay attached to assignments and man coverage and red quarter size well. We liked his burst athleticism. We liked his versatility with his capacity at nickel corner. We thought he had good ball skills. We thought he played good run defense. He had good football IQ. We thought he had deep coverage issues, which helps when you're playing nickel. You don't do that as much. Handling quicker players. That is something depends how they deploy you in just some of the urgency. So I think I look at where we had him. We had him 41, and he was our safety 3. So I don't think is crazy. Maybe we should have had him over Makuba, but we were right having him under Watts. But it's hard with Nichols.
They're not all the same player. Right. They're not the same player. That's my point. Like, they're not the same kind of player. And I don't even consider nickel a safety, to be honest. I think they're more corners than they are nickel, more corners and safeties, because their responsibilities are almost, they're like 90% coverage responsibilities. It's a little bit different, and a lot of times it's man coverage. It's very different than like safeties who are playing either zone coverage or the run game. So it's just a different position.
Maybe the takeaway here is that we need to find a way to look at some of these safeties and maybe corners and just say, hey, this guy's a nickel. Like, how would we evaluate him as a nickel? Maybe that's a second way to go through some of these guys. Maybe that's a takeaway. We'll see.
The funny thing is, like, the way they're used in college isn't always the way they're used in the NFL. So it's hard to tell, right? I feel like the NFL like does mix and match a little bit, but I almost want to lump the DBs into one big category and just watch them and say, you have your corners, which would be the outside corners, you've got your nickels, and then you've got your deep safeties, and you've got your box safeties. Maybe we should think of it that way, and maybe we could grade it that way, because I think that's a more accurate way to describe these guys in terms of what they do the majority of the time. There are very few guys who can do multiple roles, right? Like, there's not a lot of guys who do, like, I'm an outside corner and I'm also like a deep safety. That doesn't happen much. So it might be a way we look at it differently. Let's jump to corner and close this fucker out. A lot of corners the last couple of years got drafted. I don't think we've been terribly off on them. I think we had Kool-Aid McKinstry as our corner. Was he one for us?
Quinyon.
Quinyon was one. All right, so that was your find early on.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody knew who Quinyon Mitchell was. You found him, and you're like, who is this guy from Toledo? And we're like, holy shit, he's good. And he ended up being corner one in the draft, and he's a stud. He's an all-pro.
And we were very high on him. He was 9 on our big board, and he was just outside the blue chips. He was the first player after the blue chips. Next, we had was Byron Murphy. No, wait, I'm blanking. That's the
Jade Barron. Jade Barron.
No, Jade Barron was the next year. We had Terrion Arnold next.
Okay, he hasn't been as good.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some issues. Kool-Aid has been better than him.
Mm-hmm. Something to worth.
Was this the year we argued about Kamari Lassiter?
We argued about Kamari Lassiter.
You were right about Lassiter. You
were wrong about TJ Tampa.
Yeah, he's stiff as a board.
But next guy was DeJean. Again, more of a nickel guy, but we love DeJean. Nate Wiggins, who's been pretty good. I think I was a little higher on Nate Wiggins, so I think that brought him up a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't love Nate Wiggins, and I think he's been okay. I think he's a starter. I mean, he's fine, but I don't think there's anything special there.
Kool-Aid McKinstry was that next.
He's good. Now, he was hurt. Remember that hurt his drafts, the way we viewed him. He had that broken foot, but he was really good. He's translated. He's a good player.
Large gap, Mike Sanders still. Then Kamari Lassiter.
He had a bad year last year, but he had a great rookie year. Again, he's playing out of position. I'll defend him. I think he's a nickel. He should be playing nickel. They have him playing outside corner because they're ridiculous out there. I don't know what the fuck goes on over there, but I think he's a good football player.
Ennis Rakestraw, TJ Tampa. I don't know. There is certainly a little bit to learn. I think we were pretty good. It probably is worth diving in deeper onto that, but I think for the most part we did pretty good on that.
Yeah. What about this past year?
This past year, let's see.
Jade Barron was in this past draft, right?
Yes, Jade Barron.
He has not been great so far.
Well, Will Johnson was our cornerback one.
That's obviously a hit.
And we didn't overthink it, and I think when he played, he was phenomenal.
Where did we have Travis Hunter? Was he 2?
Oh, he was 1. Technically, Hunter was. You're right. Hunter was 1 in the entire draft, but he was an interesting one.
And I think he's going to be a good corner when he gets a chance to fully play it.
And he was our cornerback 1 when we graded him too. So, and I agree with you. Then it was Will Johnson. Then it was Jade Barron at 17.
Hasn't worked out so far.
Nope. Then Maxwell Harrison, I think, was the next one.
He got hurt.
Yep.
Then you loved Harrison. I liked him too.
Yeah.
Obviously, his draft stock went up and he ran like a 4.33 or whatever it was.
When you made me watch Harrison because you didn't want to watch that Kentucky defense, I was like, I don't know, dude. I didn't like watching this defense, but this kid is good.
I had PTSD from watching Drew Phillips the year before and falling asleep every 3 seconds watching that garbage. Yeah.
Siobhan Ravel, a big gap. Siobhan Ravel.
Again, because of injury. I think he was in the beginning. He was our cornerback 2 or something, behind Will Johnson when we started, or 2 or 3, and then he tore his ACL week 2 or something. So you had to kind of knock him down because you didn't see him play.
Benjamin Morrison, again, injury.
Yeah.
Trey Amos, he's been all right.
He's been good.
Mm-hmm.
They actually got one right over there.
Mm-hmm. I think that was it for our corners.
Okay. All right. So what did we learn in the secondary? Not a whole lot. I think it's obvious who's good on tape, and I think largely they translate. I don't think there's much more to say there. Although I think breaking up the safeties into nickels and box safeties and deep safeties, I think is a good way to look at this.
I think the main takeaway I got from this is I was right about Kamari Lassiter. That's what I get. That's what I got.
I'll give you your props. You were definitely right about Kamari Lassiter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if TJ Tampa got drafted to D'Amico Ryans, he'd have a better career also. So, that there is that. No, Lasser is good. All right. We've done every position. So what do we like in all? And thank you guys again for being here, sitting through it. Like, you guys are always diehard sitting here to the very end. We've made our mistakes. We've gotten some things right. And I think our general approach is we're gonna try to hold ourselves accountable when we're wrong about stuff, because not just because it's honest, but because I don't know how you can get better unless you're honest about assessing yourself and saying, oh, I fucked that up. I got to get better at this.
And I think part of it is like, obviously I will take to what the experts say and I will listen to it and I will trust them. But my own rankings, I'm going to try to keep independent, because otherwise I'm not going to learn from it. I'm going to learn to not trust the experts, is my only takeaway would be.
Exactly. And I think that's for anybody who wants to do this. I think you just have to trust your own eyes, and say that, I mean, everybody else loves this guy. I don't love this guy. And here's why I don't love this guy. And just take note of it, and remember why you didn't. And if you're wrong, go back and see what you got wrong and maybe what the others got right. But if you're right, if the reason a guy is not as good as you thought that others thought they would be, is it because you saw something they didn't? And if the answer is yeah, then what you're probably proving is that a lot of people who do this for a living and who do this all the time on Twitter are just kind of copying each other.
It feels good when you get one of those. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, somebody has something different from you. It doesn't mean you're stupid or they're stupid. You see it differently, and one of you will have to learn from it if you're willing to learn from it.
Yeah. So I'll leave you guys with this one draft take, and I'm going to borrow this from Monty and it's going to piss off DK. But everybody's draft crush right now is Uwane. And I think we all agree he's an ass kicker, right? He's a whoop ass, tank of a human being. Very easy bet to be a Pro Bowl guard. Would love to have him. But I think where he might be getting overrated here is what his impact in the run game and his athleticism could bring to it. I think if you're being honest with your eyes, I did not have a problem with his athleticism, but it's not like a plus in his game, He has he's a little bit more athletic than Cooper Beebe, if you really want to be honest, right? I think he's got a similar frame. He's a tank. He's obviously a much better player, but he doesn't offer you that second level range on a consistent level, like guys who are the elite run blockers do. So I think that's the hot take. And I don't think you're going to hear that a lot from people who are in love with him in draft Twitter, and for good reason. I mean, he offers enough where you should feel comfortable taking him as high as 5 and knowing you're having an all pro. But I think that's something to watch when he gets to the NFL level. Is that real, right? Is he a guy who's a big plus in the run game, or is he just this dominant pass blocker who maybe isn't this big plus in the run game? And I think it's something paying attention to, because when you're taking that high, you want people to be really good at everything. So it's just something to pay attention to, is that athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, because it's the same case I made where that's why I don't necessarily see him as the elite guard prospect. Doesn't mean he's not great. Doesn't mean he's not guard one. I don't think he's going top 10, and I really don't believe he's going top 10. I know people want him to go top 10. They feel he's worthy of it. I think there's a case to be made for it. I don't think the NFL is there yet where they feel comfortable taking guards that high unless they are superstars in every facet of their game. And I don't think they're going to look at him and say, elite run blocker, good pass. I mean, elite pass blocker, good, not great run blocker. Am I assigning, does he fit my run scheme?
Right. 10th overall, top 10 pick to this, or would I rather have an elite edge rusher? Team, say what you want about it. NFL teams do think like this, right? And I think for that reason, I do not believe he's going in the top 10, unless it's the Giants who trade down into the top 10. And then it's different, right? You're not just taking him, let's say 9th overall or 8th overall. You're taking him in addition to getting an additional day 2 pick or something like that. Then I think you view that pick differently.
Yeah. I mean, I could see him going top 10 though, just for the reason that we've talked about earlier. It's weak at the top of the draft. It might just be one of those drafts where a safety doesn't normally go as high as they do. An off-ball linebacker doesn't normally go as high. You got 2 blue chippers, and I don't think the NFL has enough guys to overthink these guys for. The one thing I will say, to play devil's advocate to Ione, because I agree with you. That's my take. That's what I came away with it too. The one thing I'll say, you look at the players we fucked up on in the interior line. The 2 biggest misses I'm seeing. Cooper Beebe's one of them. These are actually both Cowboys, and Tyler Booker, and two
Very
fatties.
similar profiles.
Yeah, we didn't like the athleticism, and they proved us wrong. And we have a type. We clearly have a type, and that's something
We like the athletes.
We like the athletes. I mean, same thing at receiver. We like the route runners and things like that. But and it's okay to have a type, but I think you have to be conscious of it when we're trying to objectively grade guys as well.
Yep. Oh, and since I don't give a shit about time, you brought up a great point about wide receiver. I'll just jump to that for a second because we didn't discuss this. What doesn't work at wide receiver, what categorically does not translate at wide receiver, is chasing the Deebo Samuel prototype. Like these dudes, like every year, these guys are easy to love in college. The manufactured touch guys who do nothing but run catch screens and short crossers, and they don't do much else because they can't separate, but they're amazing and they get yak. And I'm talking about the Malachi Corleys, the Jonathan Mingos. This year, David Bell is that guy, right? Chris Bell. These guys, everybody loves them. They Xavier Legette, right? Another one. Everybody loves these guys because they're like, oh man, look how physical. Just imagine them with the ball in their hand and the NFL level. And the reality is they never get the ball in their hand. And the reason they don't get the ball in their hand is because they can't run a fucking route and they can't separate. And when your quarterback has 2.5 seconds in the pocket with freaking Myles Garrett chasing him, and he's got to make a decision and your ass is covered, you're not getting the ball. The ball's going somewhere else. And these guys just are woefully underproducing. So I'm perfectly okay with being wrong and missing on one of those guys way more than I'm okay with swinging on them and taking that chance. I want no part of those guys. Do not put Chris Bell on this team. Seriously, I don't want to see it. He's just another iteration of these guys. Get me the route runner. Get me the guy who separates. I don't care about his goddamn 40 time. I care about, can he run a route and create separation? And when the ball's in the air, can he track it and go get it? That's it. That's what I care about, right? Like, and I don't care about like whether you can get yak off a screen. Like that shit just does not translate.
Yeah.
Davion Williams, another one. Good one. We talked about him earlier. Every year there are these guys.
I think what we need to look at is obviously we like the yak. Yak's a good thing, but it's the secondary like thing to look for. And I think there's an aspect where you look at these guys and you go, if you took away the yak, where are you taking him? And I think that might be an approach you kind of have to take. You take away the yak, where are you taking him? And it's nice to have it. We can, it's a plus, but is he a good receiver first?
Yep. Can you run a route? Can you run multiple routes on the route tree stem? Do you run them well? And when you run them, especially at the stem, are you creating separation? It's a very simple thing, right? Are you able to run a reasonably full route tree? Can you create separation? Because if you do, you're going to get targets, right? You're going to get a higher target share. That's what target share really means, right? You're getting a target share because you're creating a throwing window for your quarterback and he's finding you. And then the question is, what do you do with it when the ball comes your way? Are you catching them? Are you getting yards after catch from that point? Like, are you showing body control? Are you a hands catcher? All that stuff comes later. But the fundamental stuff is, can you run the route tree and create separation? If you can't do that shit, I want no part of you. I really don't. I don't even want to think about you. You're a UDFA in my mind.
Yeah. One thing too that I'll say with wide receivers that I feel like I've learned over the time of doing it, really more confirmed. It's something I've always kind of felt is I'll continue to push back on, this guy is a slot only in the league. And I think there's exceptions to that, size, athleticism. There's certain things on the extreme ends that can limit that to you. But like, I remember that for Jackson Smith-Njigba. This guy's going to be a slot only. I'm like, this guy's a fucking good football player. Like you saw it with Justin Jefferson. You saw it with CeeDee Lamb. You see it over and over again. I don't care what percentage of slots reps you play. That's what colleges do. They try to just get you open. If you're a good football player, you're going to play outside because that's just the league. That almost nobody plays slot only. And the only ones who do, it's because they're really small or really slow.
The Calvin Austins, the Wandales of the world.
The Keenan Allens.
Yeah. It's not what you're looking for. All right, man. 2.5 hours in. so appropriate for our 100th episode is push this sucker near 3 hours.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys as always. You can follow us at He's a Giant Pod. Follow Monty at MONTECRI5TO. Follow me at Queens_guy. Hit the like button on your way out. And please, please, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Share the episode with your friends. We love you guys. We really do love you guys. And we thank you for helping us get this far to the 100th episode. We got another month to go before the draft, so we got to get some shit going. We are working with our buddy KSIXI on a big board reveal episode, so that's coming up pretty soon. We haven't figured out if we're going to do top 100 or top 50 with him yet. We're kind of going back and forth on how much discussion we want to have, but we will have that episode at some point in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to do some player previews. I think we're going to try to run through some position groups just to kind of round out things as we head towards the draft. Until then, Monty, you have any closing thoughts?
Nope. Go Giants.
Go Giants. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.